Rebuilding the Immortal Cultivation family. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276 Roar. The monsters have been prepared for a long time. Everyone be careful, Li Zhirui reminded through voice transmission. Among the tribesmen who participated in the battle this time, apart from Li Zhirui and Li Shiking, the only two people who deserve praise are Li Shiren and Li Shitting. The strength of the other tribesmen is too weak. Even if they are protected, there is a great possibility that they will fall. Li Shiren and Li Shitting still have the idea of forming a den. The last time they fought with the demon cultivators, although they were on the verge of life and death several times, it was a pity that they did not seize the opportunity to break through, so they came again. Qiu Zhuan, the giant cultivator who led the team from Shanli Mountain, looked at the dense army of monsters with an ugly face. They originally planned to sneak in carefully and help Xuanbing sect share some of the pressure. They never thought about dealing with so many monsters. Just a glance, you can see 20 or 30 giant monsters, and even in the rear, there is a huge pillar of demonic energy rising into the sky, which means that there is a 4th level monster here. Junior sister Hu, please go back to the sect and tell the head brother and Uncle Yunli about the news here, and ask them what to do now, Qiu Zhuan said in a deep voice. Junior brother Qiu, be careful. Junior sister Hu nodded and immediately turned into a ray of pink light and disappeared. My fellow junior brothers, this battle is dangerous. You should give up the idea of killing the monsters and collecting spiritual objects, Qiu Zhuan warned them. As for whether they would listen or not, that was none of his business. Everyone, follow me and kill the monsters, Qiu Zhuan shouted loudly, and spiritual light emerged from his hands. A black cloud condensed in the sky. After a few breaths, thunder poured out and blasted towards the monsters below. Buzz, but what was unexpected was that a defensive formation suddenly appeared and blocked Qiu Zhuan's attack. Li Zhirui, who had activated a large number of explosive vines, saw this scene and his pupils shrank suddenly. How is this possible? When did the monsters learn to set up formations? A cultivator shouted in horror. The monsters and humans have been hostile for many years and have learned a lot from each other, but even if the monsters have learned skills such as alchemy, refining, and formations, there are few proficient ones. After all, this was created by the ancestors of the human race in the bodies of the human race. The monsters are aliens. No matter how hard they try to learn, there will always be a gap. Moreover, the monsters are spiritually ignorant. Generally speaking, they will only be able to open up their spiritual wisdom after breaking through the golden elixir. In addition, the monsters are scattered everywhere, without the guidance of their elders and without the corresponding inheritance, and there is no way to learn at all. The monsters of the Great Snow Mountain are already good. At least they can refine some low and medium level elixirs and magic tools. The formation is a difficult skill for the human race, and the monsters have never learned a formation above the 3rd level from beginning to end. But today, they took it out. And it was a formation that Li Shiren had never seen before. When Li Zhirui heard Li Shiren say that he had never seen this formation, he suddenly had a strong bad feeling in his heart. In his mind, an extremely absurd idea suddenly emerged, that is, this formation was created by the demon clan themselves. In fact, it might be because Li Shiren was not knowledgeable enough and didn't know this formation. After all, he was just a foundation-building cultivator, and the Li family was not a family that was proficient in formations, but Li Zhirui felt that his absurd idea was correct. This battle may be more dangerous than a battle with demon cultivators, Li Zhirui instructed the clan member who controlled the spirit ship, saying, you must be prepared at all times. Once I tell you to retreat, you must immediately increase the speed of the spirit ship to the fastest, without any hesitation. The same goes for others. Pay attention to your remaining mana. Once it drops to 30%, stop immediately and go to the cabin to recover your mana. Seeing Li Zhirui so serious, everyone became more and more panicked, and they were even more timid when they started to fight, and did not dare to use their full strength. Zhirui, is the matter so serious? Li Shiking asked in a voice transmission. Li Zhirui told him his guess and added, second grandfather, there is a 4th level monster behind this beast tide. If the monster beasts suffer heavy losses, do you think he will take action? It's not like they haven't seen the strength of the nascent soul realm before. Yunlei's Henjin almost shattered the blood lake with just one blow, forcing out the trump card of Yinfeng Cave, giving them a suffocating feeling hiding in the distance. Yunlei's Hunjin has just broken through the nascent soul realm not long ago, and judging from the breadth of this 4th level monster, his strength is definitely above Yunlei. After hearing this, Li Zhirui fell into silence. If it was really as Li Zhirui said, I don't know if the tens of thousands of cultivators present would have a 10% survival rate in the end. Rumble. Under the vigorous attacks of countless cultivators, this formation was finally broken. But the cultivators paid a painful price. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators fell, and looking around, the earth was full of the wreckage of the spirit ship covered with blood and flesh. Fortunately, their sacrifice was not in vain. The demon clan formation was broken by everyone. Without the protection of the formation, the monks were on the spiritual ship and looked down from a high position. The monsters suffered heavy losses for a while, and a large number of monsters died. The broken flesh and debris of monsters and monks piled up like a mountain, and the blood gathered into a lake. A strong smell of blood made people very uncomfortable. But whether it was the monsters or the monks, they seemed to have not smelled it, and they still fought each other madly without knowing it. Roar. Duqing, who had been summoned by Li Zhirui, suddenly roared and instantly turned back into his true form of a spirit turtle. It was this roar and violent movement that woke up Li Zhirui, who was gradually falling into madness. Looking at the situation of the nearby tribesmen, Li Zhirui's heart sank. He saw that their eyes were red and there was no trace of wisdom, just like wild beasts who only knew how to kill. There is something else in this bloody smell. Li Zhirui's mind flashed with inspiration, and he immediately closed his eyes to comprehend it. Suddenly, he found that under the strong smell of blood, there was a sweet and sticky smell. Confusing heart fragrance, or something else? Li Zhirui did not dwell on this matter, and immediately used his magic power to recite the Kingsin mantra to wake up the tribesmen. Second grandfather, use your magic power to block the 5 senses, Li Zhirui reminded him and prepared to continue to recite the Kingsin mantra so that the monks around him would wake up. But just as he was about to speak, his spiritual sense began to beat wildly, warning him that an extremely terrible danger was about to come, and he shouted in an instant, "Go!" Fortunately, the tribesman had always remembered Li Zhirui's words. When he heard him speak, he poured a lot of magic power into the spirit ship without hesitation. The huge spirit ship was like an arrow from a string, and it flew dozens of miles away in an instant. Faster. Don't worry about the spirit ship's endurance. Hurry up. But even so, Li Zhirui could still feel the breath of death coming towards him, and roared with a grim face. Chapter 277, Great Defeat. Interesting, an ant actually woke up early. Behind the army of monsters, a green-headed lion with long hair and a body as big as a mountain raised his eyes and looked at the spirit ship that was madly fleeing into the distance, and couldn't help but chuckle. Without seeing him make any movements, a green light condensed between heaven and earth, and it was incredibly fast, but in the blink of an eye it appeared behind Li Zhirui and others. Damn it, Li Zhirui felt the horror of the green light, and his life treasure Qianling appeared above his head. The mana in his body roared out like an uncontrolled flood, unleashing the most powerful attack so far. The water and wood divine light turned into 2 giant dragons, howling to the sky, and directly crashed into the green light. Decking, use all your defensive spells and magical powers, Li Zhirui ordered breathlessly. Everyone, use your strongest spells to attack this green light. Boom boom, the majestic dragon, the moment it came into contact with a green light, gathered its spiritual energy. Its body became several times larger, and then exploded violently. But this approach only made the green light slightly dim, and it still attacked everyone with great momentum. The violent explosion also made the unconscious monks wake up. Thinking back to the strange situation just now and the 4th level demon who had already taken action, how could they dare to stay here? They all controlled their spirit boats to escape. As for their savior who was being attacked, no monk was willing to help. Li Zhirui had expected this, and he did not intend to ask them to help. His purpose was just to make the demon stop targeting them. Sure enough, the demon withdrew his gaze, no longer paying attention to them, and began to catch the monks who wanted to escape. How could ordinary cultivators escape the methods of the 4th order demon? At one time, a large number of cultivators were easily captured by him, and the cries and pleas for mercy of the cultivators echoed between heaven and earth. At this time, the tribesmen's spells were cast. Although the power was weak, dozens of attacks still weakened the power of the green light a lot. In fact, the most effective one was Li Zhirui's 3rd order talisman. One by one, The precious third-order talismans were activated in an instant, as if they were free of charge. But even if everyone used all their methods, and the mana and talismans were exhausted, the green light was still unstoppable and crashed into the heavy defense of Daking. Crack, layers of spiritual light shattered in response, and in a few breaths, only the defensive spiritual light of the spirit ship was left. All the tribesmen on the ship fell into despair, as if they saw the scene of their own death. Several psychologically fragile tribesmen were already crying loudly. At this moment, Li Zhirui, who had forcibly refined a large number of spiritual pills and recovered most of his mana, stood up and stretched out his hand towards the green light, and the surging water and wood light burst out. The two collided, and the huge impact force that erupted made the spirit ship shaky and the spiritual light flickered, but at the same time it also sent the spirit ship hundreds of miles away. Ahem, Li Zhirui, whose energy was exhausted and whose meridians were cracked, fell on the board, with a touch of bright red blood at the corner of his mouth. Is God going to kill me? At the moment he fell, he saw the green light. Although it became very dim, it still had a strong attack power, and they had lost the ability to resist. Just as Li Zhirui was about to close his eyes and wait for death, a sword light flew over his head and hit the dimmed green light. Second grandfather. Could it be that he also forcibly refined a large number of healing pills like me? Unfortunately, he was now lying on the board, and his consciousness was also very weak, and he could not see the situation outside. However, it can be seen from the fact that the green light did not fall and killed them that they survived. Li Zhirui was overjoyed, and his tense mind relaxed, and he fell asleep immediately. If he was still awake, he would be surprised to find that the green light was shattered by the sword energy. But at the same time, Li Zhirui, who was originally a middle-aged man, had a lot of gray hair, wrinkles on his face, and his vitality was much weaker. The reason why Li Zhirui was able to shatter the green light with a sword energy was that in addition to it being weakened a lot after a lot of attacks, it was also because he burned his own blood and even his life. Second uncle, Li Zhirui and Li Zhirui saw this scene, and their voices were full of worry. I'm fine, you guys quickly control the spirit ship, leave this place, and return to Shenli Mountain. He was worried that the big demon would be angry and continue to attack them. Fortunately, everyone knew the importance of the matter, leaving a few people to take care of Li Zhirui and Li Zhirui, and the others took turns to meditate to restore their magic power, and then control the spirit ship. Hey, these little ants actually escaped. The big blue lion demon noticed that his attack was broken, and looked over in surprise. But he could only see a small black dot far away from his sight. The distance was too far, and he could no longer attack them. I didn't pay attention for a moment, and let a group of little bugs escape. The big demon was angry, so he vented his anger on the monks who had not escaped yet. For a while, countless monks were caught by him. Li Zhirui and others who escaped in a panic met some monks who were lucky enough to escape on the way. But because the two golden elixirs of the Li family, one fell into coma, and the other had to consolidate his vitality because of burning his life, so he couldn't show up. Li Zhirui was worried that they would take advantage of the opportunity, so she didn't act with him. In fact, there was another golden elixir on the ship, that is Daking, but he was better at defense, and there was not much mana left in his body. Fortunately, because they had just escaped from the big demon, they were all terrified and tranced, and didn't notice that something was wrong with the Li family. When they arrived at the edge of Wanlizhao, they happened to meet a group of Shenli mountain monks who seemed to be going to the battlefield to support. Fellow Daoists, don't go to Taixus. The fourth level demon attacked, and I don't know how many cultivators died. We are lucky to escape. Two giant monks stood up to persuade them, and at the same time they were also thinking about themselves. After all, delaying before the battle is a taboo. If Shenli Mountain wants to investigate, they are afraid that they will suffer. They actually knew the news. After all, Jiuzhuan sent people to bring the situation on the battlefield back to Shenli Mountain. It's just that they didn't expect why the fourth level demon suddenly attacked. Come back. The identity jade card of the Shenli Mountain disciple flashed with spiritual light, and then these four big words appeared. Everyone followed them into Shenli Mountain, and then they were called to the sect hall to find out the details of the battlefield and why the demon suddenly attacked. Everyone knew a little about the former, and could probably tell the strength of the demon clan, but for the latter, they were also confused and didn't know what was going on. Thank you for your support. Chapter 278 Anger. The sudden message from Shenli Mountain was because a large number of cultivators such as Chuzhuan died in an instant, and their life cards were broken. Considering the news brought back from the battlefield, it is not difficult to guess that it was the 4th level demon who took action. You all go down and rest first, sect leader Wen waved his hand with a bad look on his face. He was in glory, but he was suddenly awakened by this defeat. How could he be in a good mood? Li Zhirui and Li Zhiding, who were worried about the situation of Li Zhiqing and Li Zhirui, heard this and immediately stood up and said goodbye, and walked hurriedly towards the courtyard where the Li family lived. Uncle Yanli, what should we do now? Sect leader Wen looked at Yanli's Henjin, who was sitting at the top with his eyes closed. Yanli's Henjin said indifferently, send people to station near Taxus Hao, don't take the initiative to attack, and wait for the cultivators sent to Zuanbing sect to bring back news before talking about the rest. Yes, when sect leader Wen looked up again, Yanli's Henjin had already left the hall. What is going on? How could the demon race know the news in advance? Did the Zuanbing sect leak it intentionally, or was there an undercover demon race in the sect? After returning to the cave, Yanli's Henjin began to think seriously about the doubts. According to the news brought back by everyone, they encountered at least tens of thousands of demons, including dozens of 3rd-level demon beasts. Such a large scale could not be gathered in a short time, and they must have been prepared in advance. Moreover, the big demon's attack was too abrupt. Although both sides suffered heavy losses, the war had just begun, and the number of deaths was not too large. Moreover, the demon race still had a slight upper hand. It depends on how the Zuanbing sect responds. The reason why Shanli Mountain took action was because the Zuanbing sect sent the news and agreed on the time to take action. But if the Zuanbing sect did not launch the attack on time, and also told the demon race the news, then all this makes sense. But why did the Zuanbing sect do this? Yanli's Henjin was puzzled. There was no big conflict between the two families, and their respective territories did not border each other. 2 flowers bloom, each showing its own branch. However, Li Zhirui, who had fallen into coma due to exhaustion, woke up not long after entering Shanli Mountain. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Li Zhirui, who was guarding the bed with a sad face, and asked in a hoarse voice, Uncle Ren, where are we now? How did we escape in the end? Li Zhirui hesitated, and finally told him what happened under his questioning. What? Li Zhirui heard that the reason they were able to escape was all thanks to Li Zhiqing burning his own lifespan to break the terrifying blow. Cough cough cough. Li Zhirui's body is not well yet. He can't stop coughing loudly when he is excited. The whole person is very uncomfortable. Don't worry, second uncle is fine. He is resting next to you now. Li Zhirui hurriedly spoke to comfort him. Li Zhirui shook his head and said anxiously, No, Uncle Ren, help me up quickly, I want to go see my second grandfather. Li Zhiqing was almost at the end of his life before he broke through the golden elixir. After forming the elixir, his lifespan doubled, but it was only more than 200 years. Now that part of his lifespan has been burned, doesn't that mean he can only live for more than 100 years? You should rest well now. The meridians in your body are very fragile. If they are broken by accident, then the efforts of the second uncle will be in vain. Li Zhirui said with a gloomy face, the war is not over yet. We will have to go to the border city to guard against the monsters in a while. Shanli Mountain really doesn't regard us as human beings, Li Zhirui said gritting his teeth. Don't worry, they didn't ask us to go up and die, they just guard against the monsters. When saying this, Li Zhirui's face was full of sarcasm. So, you should have a good rest now. When we are in danger, we can escape smoothly. Li Zhirui smiled bitterly and said, I'll go see second uncle. Li Zhirui couldn't calm down for a long time. He knew that Shanli Mountain didn't take them, the vassal monks, seriously, but they were forced to go in a situation where they were obviously sending people to their deaths. Ninth brother, how do you feel now? In addition to the meridians, are there any other discomforts? Taking rushed in and asked anxiously. Because the relationship between the two was not an unequal relationship between master and servant, it was not appropriate to call him master. Finally, after some discussion, they decided on the current title according to Li Zhirui's ranking in the family. I'm fine, thanks to you at that time. Li Zhirui forced a smile and comforted him. If Daking hadn't used his best defense spells to buy time for Li Zhiqing and weakened the power of the green light, they would probably have fallen long ago. Ahem, Daking wanted to say something, but seeing that Li Zhirui was still coughing, he immediately took out a rejuvenation pill from his stored ring and fed it to him, saying, Brother Jiu, quickly refine the elixir to heal your wounds. I'll go outside to help you protect the law. Li Zhirui carefully mobilized the warm current transformed by the drug effect, slowly wandering in his body, repairing the damaged meridians. Time passed quickly, and several days passed in the blink of an eye. Shen Lishan once again urged the Li family to go to the border, and this time, because Li Shiking also woke up from his coma, there was no reason to refuse, so he could only drag his injured body to the border town. Li Zhirui, who was supported by Dakwing and walked towards the spirit ship, looked back at the tall and majestic mountain gate not far away, and a strong hatred emerged in the depths of his eyes. If it weren't for Shen Lishan, they wouldn't go to the border to fight the demon clan, and Li Shiking wouldn't burn his life to save them. After Li Zhirui's consciousness was able to be released, he saw Li Shiking's situation. His long black hair had now turned gray, and his face was wrinkled, making him look old. One day, I will crush this Shenli mountain, Li Zhirui swore in his heart, then retracted his gaze and followed the spirit ship to the border. Flying at full speed, it took only half a day to reach the destination, and then the group settled in a fairy city. This is where the Li family will stay next. As for how long they will stay, it depends on when the demon tribe retreats or when Shenli Mountain calls them back. Zhirui, you and second uncle rest assured to recover. We will always keep an eye on the demon tribe's movements. Thank you, Uncle Ren, you have worked hard. Li Zhirui turned to Daking and said, Daking, I will trouble you to help sit in the city and intimidate the monks in the city. When they just got off the spirit ship, he and Li Shiking, the two patients surrounded by people, were seen by many people. Maybe some bold monks thought they were strong and wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. Chapter 279 Reason. Don't think it's impossible. There's nothing strange in the world. Maybe there are such self-important and weird cultivators. Moreover, in this fairy city, there is not only the Li family, but also another giant in force, which is also to monitor the movements of the demon clan and supervise the other party at the same time. Fortunately, there is Daking, a third-level demon beast comparable to the giant in realm, otherwise the situation of the Li family will be even worse. When the giant in force saw the two seriously injured giant in cultivators, they thought about designing a plan to deal with Li Zhirui and the others and obtain their spiritual objects. But just when they were about to take action, Daking stood up. This scared them so much that they immediately gave up their previous ideas and put on a posture of not interfering with each other. With Daking in charge, the situation of the Li family was still okay, and Li Zhirui and Li Shiking began to heal their wounds with peace of mind. Speaking of the disciples who were sent to collect information in the main hall of Shenli Mountain, they finally sent back the news. When sect leader Wen opened it, he was shocked by the contents and cried out, the Zuanbing sect didn't take action. We were being plotted against, but why did the Zuanbing sect do this? The two sects were not neighbors and had no deep hatred for each other. So why did they risk the world's condemnation and join forces with the demon clan? Since the Zuanbing sect is unkind, don't blame us for being unjust. Sect leader Wen's eyes flashed with a fierce look. The number of cultivators they lost in this battle was not much less than that in the Envy War. Sect leader, should we retaliate? But there is still takes a province in between, an elder asked in confusion. Who said we should do it ourselves? My idea is to give them a taste of their own medicine. Sect master once sneered and said, collect all the demon-attracting liquids in the sect, and then follow the route to lead them to the territory of Zuanbing sect. Should we call back those cultivators who are still guarding the border town? Sect master Wen curled his lips and said, if we call them back, who will arrange the demon-attracting liquid? Such dangerous things, of course, cannot be left to their own cultivators, and they can be left to those ant-like vassals. While Shenli Mountain was discussing how to retaliate, Zuanbing sect was also discussing something related to it. That is to take back takes us how. To be more precise, they are after a precious spiritual object in the secret realm and takes us how. Li Zhirui once obtained the giant and spiritual object Jinsui, the fourth-level purple-veined green bamboo for refining Qianling, and various spiritual medicines in the secret realm, which shows how rich the resources in the secret realm are. And what Zuanbing sect wants is a fourth-level Yuang flower. This is a very peculiar spiritual medicine. The growing environment must be full of yang qi, and then after 5 cycles of withering and flourishing, nearly 1,000 years of reincarnation, it will not be considered mature until the 6th flowering. After maturity, if the spiritual flower is not picked in time, it will begin to wither, and use its own spiritual energy to condense spiritual seeds and reproduce offspring. The function of Liu Yang flower is very simple. It can help the cultivator's soul to become yang. The so-called yang transformation of the soul is a crucial point in breaking through the realm of transformation, but if you are not careful, the soul will be burned and fall. But if you take Liu Yang flower, you can transform the soul in a gentle and subtle way. Although the process is relatively slow, the degree of danger is greatly reduced. It is conceivable how precious Liu Yang flower is. If the news spreads, I am afraid that countless Yuanying's Henjin will come to compete for it. After all, this is a treasure that can help cultivators break through the realm of transformation. A large part of the monsters are targeting Shenli Mountain, so there are not many monsters in Taixu State now. If we raid now, we can easily drive away those monsters and conquer the place where the secret realm is, an elder of Zunbing sect said excitedly, as if he saw Liu Yang flower waving to him. Another elder frowned and asked, but by doing this, we have offended Shenli Mountain. How are they going to deal with it? Although Shenli Mountain's strength is not as good as theirs, and they are far away, how can they not be angry when they are plotted against like this? Maybe they are preparing to retaliate. When we get Liu Yang flower and let the ancestor break through the god transformation realm, how dare Shenli Mountain blame us? Several elders who have always been calm opened their mouths. Liu Yang flower can only make people break through the god transformation realm. How can they say that the ancestor will definitely be able to break through? But at this time, they can't say anything to spoil the fun, so they can only sit aside and keep silent. In that case, let's do it, a Yuanying cultivator of Zunbing sect gave a voice order. The Zunbing sect, which has been passed down for thousands of years, now has a total of 6 nascent soul cultivators, of which only one is in the late nascent soul stage, which is the ancestor mentioned by these elders. He is now in the process of transforming his soul into yang, but he has been unable to find the tricks and methods, and he dare not try it easily, which has caused his cultivation to stagnate completely. That's why he wants to use external objects, and the Liu Yang flower, which someone had seen in the Taixu secret realm, is the best choice. 4 of the 6 nascent soul cultivators were dispatched directly, which shows their determination to get the secret realm. As for the Jinden and foundation building cultivators, there are even more, densely packed, with nearly 100 people. These cultivators are not used to attack monsters, but to enter the secret realm as soon as possible and pick the Liu Yang flower that is about to mature, rejuvenation pill, Yang Mei pill, and Yuanbu pill, all kinds of healing elixirs, swallowed and refined alternately. Under the treatment of a large number of elixirs, Li Zhirui only took more than a month to repair the injured meridians in his body. But if you want to recover completely, you have to rest for a while. As for Li Shiking, who was more seriously injured, he was still lying on the bed and couldn't get up on his own. It seems that the demon tribe is preparing to retreat. This war is about to turn in a whimper. Li Zhirui looked at the location of the demon tribe and muttered to himself. The number of demons now is far less than what they had seen before, so they should have retreated. No. Shen Lishan took action while you were in seclusion to heal your injuries. Li Shiren on the side shook his head and said, Shen Lishan has dispatched several Jinden monks and asked them to set up spirit ships to place demon-attracting liquid above the demon beasts. Is Shen Lishan trying to retaliate against Zunbing sect? Li Zhirui reacted instantly and said with some surprise. He originally thought that Shen Lishan would swallow his anger. After all, the gap in strength between the two sides was quite large, but he didn't expect Shen Lishan to be so tough and actually attract the demon beasts to Zunbing sect. Our Li family was not selected? Finally, we have encountered some good news. Li Shiren's face froze, and he said awkwardly, we were selected, but why? Before he finished speaking, Li Zhirui reacted. After he recovered from his injuries and came out, he has not seen Decking until now. Thank you for your support. Chapter 280 Worry. Did Decking replace us to carry out the mission? Li Zhirui asked anxiously. Yes, at that time, he and Li Shiking were both recovering from injuries, but they were picked by Shenli Mountain to complete the task of arranging the demon-attracting liquid. In order not to disturb them, Decking took the initiative to step forward. As a Jinden-level spirit beast, Decking can control his 5 senses, and the demon-attracting liquid is no longer very attractive to him. The same is true for other 3rd-level demon beasts. How long have they been gone? After Li Zhirui calmed down, he sensed the soul mark of Decking in his sea of consciousness. It still emitted a faint fluorescence and seemed to be fine. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. 5 or 6 days. According to Shenli Mountain, they will be back in a few days. Li Shiren quickly comforted him. Shenli Mountain has made sufficient preparations for this operation. Daking will definitely return safely. You know, if the contracted spirit beast dies, it will cause damage to the cultivator's soul. In addition to precious natural materials and treasures, it will take many years to repair it. But for some reason, Li Zhirui always felt that things were not that simple, and a trace of uneasiness arose in his heart. But he couldn't leave now. Many clansmen in the city, especially Li Shiking, who was still recovering from his injuries, needed Li Zhirui's protection. The other force in the city had never given up the idea of taking action against the Li family. Even after knowing that Daking had left, they had already tried many times. The Li family had to retreat to the temporary station and be careful. Now is the time when Li Zhirui is needed. Once he leaves to find Daking, these clansmen in the city will probably become a corpse. So in the end he could only deceive himself and comfort himself that it was just an illusion, and Daking would definitely be able to return safely. Uncle Ren, let's go out for a walk. He wanted to relax and at the same time warned that force that he had already come out of seclusion. Li Shiren instantly understood what Li Zhirui meant, followed him silently, and walked around freely in this fairy city. The alchemist of the Li family actually showed up. Could it be that he has recovered from his injuries? The giant and cultivator who had been observing the Li family frowned after hearing the news. The reason why they planned to take action was because they thought that Li Zhirui, the third-level alchemist, must have brought a lot of elixirs with him, and they wanted to get a batch of resources. Anyway, death is like the extinguishing of a lamp, and no one would bother them for a dead third-level alchemist. As for the punishment of Shanli Mountain, they are the family that raised Yunli's Henjin. What kind of punishment can there be? At most, it is a slight punishment to save face. If they handle it well, maybe there will be no such punishment, and they can directly say that Li Zhirui and others died at the hands of monsters. But with Li Zhirui waking up, it is not easy for them to take action. Once they force the other party into a corner, they will also suffer huge losses. Is it possible that his injuries have not healed, and he is just holding on and bluffing now? A certain elder still wants to get the elixir in the hands of the Li family. Although they are the family of Yunlei Zhenjun, in fact, the relationship between the two sides is not that close. Especially after Yunlei Zhenjun's blood relatives died, and after breaking through the giant and helping the family to cultivate a giant and cultivator, the two sides only had some exchanges on certain days. But as Yunlei Zhenjun got older and older, and it was almost impossible for him to break through the Yuanying, they slowly lost contact. But who would have thought that decades later, this old giant suddenly broke through the bottleneck and became a Yuanying cultivator. Therefore, after Yunlei Zhenjun broke through the Yuanying, they did not get any benefits, and even met him once at the infant formation ceremony. However, despite this, in fact, each family still gave them enough face. After all, this is Yunlei Zhenjun's family. What if he suddenly remembered this family? This situation is the most terrible. The leading giant shook his head and said, "Let the clansmen stop." No matter how unwilling everyone was, they could only obey orders. Their clan leader could not listen to others' opposition. That family has withdrawn all the people. The next day, Li Shiren came to tell Li Zhirui the good news. That's good. Li Zhirui also breathed a sigh of relief. His current condition only looks good, but in fact his meridians are still fragile and not suitable for fighting. But he was not too happy, because the premonition before made him very worried about Daking's condition. Li Shiren saw this and didn't say much. Fortunately, at this time, Li Shiting rushed in with a happy face and said, "Second uncle." He woke up. Li Zhirui and the others looked over immediately, got up and walked quickly towards the quiet room. Ahem, before they went in, they heard a weak cough and asked hurriedly, "Second uncle, second grandfather, are you okay?" "It's okay, I just lost some vitality. I will be fine after a period of recuperation." Li Shiking forced a smile. But in fact, his injury was not that simple. His lifespan was damaged and his body was further aged. The reason he said this was just to prevent them from worrying. What's the situation now? Li Shiren explained their current situation in detail, and finally said, "It seems that this war will end in a whimper." "That's good." Li Shiking sighed and coughed again. Seeing this, several people did not dare to stay any longer, and stood up and left, letting him have a good rest. A few days passed quickly. Since yesterday, Li Zhirui's heart has become more and more uneasy. He couldn't concentrate on practicing. Finally, he flew directly to the city wall and looked into the distance, hoping to see Daking coming back. But after 2 days, no one was seen. If it weren't for the contract aura in the sea of consciousness, he could barely sense Daking's situation. In addition, a group of clansmen still needed his protection. Li Zhirui was ready to rush in to take Suzhou to find Daking's whereabouts. Zhirui, Daking must be fine, Li Zhirui comforted him, hoping that he could calm down and go back to recuperate. Someone is back. At the farthest point of Li Zhirui's sight, there were two tiny black dots flying towards them. When they got a little closer, they could see clearly that they were two giant monks who were controlling the spirit ship. Li Zhirui could no longer hold back and immediately cast a spell to greet them. When he got close to the two, he asked anxiously, "I am Li Zhirui from Banyan Island. Fellow Taoists, do you know the whereabouts of Daking?" He also arranged the demon-attracting liquid with you. At first, the two wanted to bypass him directly, but when they heard his identity, they stopped immediately. Chapter 281 Missing. Seeing Li Zhirui's anxious look, they realized that this was an opportunity to make friends with a third-level alchemy master, and rushed to answer. "Dao, our demon-attracting team ran into the cultivators of Zhuanbing sect when we were leading the monsters to a certain lake. They seemed to be opening a secret realm at the time. There were several Yuanying's engine. As soon as we showed up, they discovered us and sent people to chase us. In addition to the pursuit of the cultivators, the third-level monsters in the back who had discovered their movements also chased after them. They were immediately caught in a dangerous situation of being attacked from both sides. In the end, in a panic, these cultivators fled separately. The two of them were lucky and escaped by chance. As for the situation of others, they were not sure." From the words of these two people, Li Zhirui barely pieced together the cause of the whole incident. Zhuanbing sect should have taken a fancy to some spiritual creature in the secret realm. It happened that they knew that Shenlai Mountain was going to attack Yinfeng Cave, so they took the initiative to contact them, and helped to conquer take Suzhou as a condition to avoid Shenlai Mountain's suspicion. Then, because there was still some time before the secret realm was opened, Zhuanbing sect had not urged Shenlai Mountain to take action. When the secret realm was about to open, the two sides agreed on the time to attack the demon clan. As a result, Zhuanbing sect played a trick on Shenlai Mountain, letting the demon clan know that Shenlai Mountain was going to attack take Suzhou, so that they could withdraw most of their strength to fight Shenlai Mountain, so that they could take advantage of the opportunity to enter the secret realm and obtain spiritual objects. However, in this process, an accident occurred. The fourth-level big demon directly attacked, causing countless casualties on the cultivator side. As a result, the war did not last long at all, and ended with the cultivator's defeat. Shenlai Mountain also smelled the breath of conspiracy, but due to the original contract, it asked the vassal monks to defend the border and arranged people to inquire about the news. Although many news were not inquired, it was only known that Zhuanbing sect did not take action at the agreed time. Once this news came back, if Shenlai Mountain still didn't know that he was being calculated, then all the senior officials would be fools. Although the Zhuanbing sect was stronger than them, they still couldn't bear it. Anyway, the two sects were far apart and it was impossible for them to start a war. So, they selected some monks and used the demon-attracting liquid to attract all the monsters to the territory of the Zhuanbing sect. As a result, no one knew how many monks were still alive in the situation encountered by the two monks. "Dao, are you okay? That Dao Queen must be a person with long-lasting fortune. He will definitely not die like this." Li Zhirui, who was lost in thought, was awakened by the comforting words of the two. He forced a smile and said, "Thank you for telling me, Dao." Then he took out 4 bottles of Yuanqi pills. "This is a little gift, please accept it." He knew that the two wanted to make friends with him, but he was not in the mood at all now. He only said, "If you need anything in the future, you can go to Banyan Island to find me. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." After that, he turned into a wisp of breeze and returned to the immortal city. The two giant monks were very happy. They just said a few words, and not only did they get 2 bottles of Yuanqi Den, but also the promise of an alchemy master. "Zhirui, how are you? Are you okay?" Li Zhirui saw Li Zhirui's expression, and his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. "It's okay, Daking is still alive, but I don't know when he will be back, maybe tomorrow, or maybe he will never come back." Hearing this, Li Zhirui moved his mouth and could only comfort dryly, "Don't worry, Daking will be back soon." "Yeah," Li Zhirui responded softly, saying, "Uncle Ren, I'm going to heal my wounds." He wanted to recover quickly and restore his fighting power. If Daking was imprisoned, He could also follow the induction between the two and rescue Daking. Two flowers bloom, each with its own beauty. Daking looked up at the Zhuanbing sect monks not far away, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If it weren't for them, he wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. When the group of people who arranged the demon-attracting liquid were surrounded from front and back, Daking cleverly changed back to his true form, suppressed his realm to the late second stage, hid in the demon clan, and escaped. The reason for suppressing the realm is that there are a certain number of third-level demon beasts. If he used his true cultivation, he would be discovered. So he simply suppressed it to the second level. This way, the risk of his exposure was greatly reduced. After all, there were too many second-level demon beasts. He originally wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, but a third-level demon beast happened to stand next to him and confronted the Zhuanbing sect, giving him no chance to escape. There was no way, he could only stay where he was and wait for the opportunity to escape. But as time went on, more and more third-level demon beasts arrived, and even several fourth-level demon beasts came, and the probability of Daking leaving was further reduced. Fortunately, he belonged to the turtle clan, and holding his breath was his innate instinct. In addition, no fourth-level demon noticed him, otherwise he would have been exposed long ago. I don't know how the ninth brother is doing. Has he recovered from his injuries? Even though they were thousands of miles apart, Daking was still worried about Li Zhirui. As for the imminent war in front of him, he had no interest in it. As long as he stayed away from the center of the battlefield, it would not be difficult for him to survive with his strength, and then he would find a way to leave the demon clan and return to Li Zhirui. Although these demon beasts were also Daking's same clan, they were far inferior to Li Zhirui in his heart. This time, my Zhuanbing sect must enter the secret realm. The attraction of the 6-yang flower was too great for them. Even if they sacrificed all their disciples, they would go in. This is the secret realm of our demon clan. Why should we let you go in and harvest spiritual objects? The demon clan did not give in. After all, they were the ones who had the upper hand at this time. Humph. Then let's talk with strength. Before he finished speaking, the Yuanying cultivator rushed out and stabbed directly at his heart. Humph. You have such a trick. A demon clan member who is twice as tall as an ordinary person just took a step forward and blocked the cultivator's way. Then he stretched out his hand and slapped it forward, forcing the man to change his defensive moves and retreat several steps. But even so, he still felt the blood in his body surging and felt very uncomfortable. Anyway, the demon clan looked relaxed, as if nothing had happened. The face of the nascent soul cultivator was full of anger, because the other party was obviously humiliating him. For a moment, anger surged in his heart, and he was ready to continue to fight. But thinking back to the situation just now, he finally suppressed his hands that were about to make a seal, and returned to the monk team with a sullen face. Humph. Not only is he a waste, but he is also a coward without balls, the demon clan said loudly, wishing that everyone could hear it. Thank you for your support. Chapter 282 Secret Realm. Although the Zhuanbing sect was temporarily at a disadvantage, it did not retreat, and the forces of both sides were in a stalemate. Seeing this, Daking, who was hiding in the demon clan, was very anxious. If Li Zhirui woke up and found that he had not returned, he would definitely be very worried, and might even act impulsively and go directly to take Xiao to find him. Fortunately, not long after, the secret realm suddenly glowed with spiritual light, and an illusory small world slowly unfolded, and then slowly disappeared, turning into a portal composed of spiritual light. If we continue to stalemate, it will not be good for both of us. We missed this opportunity for nothing. Why not put aside the contradiction for the time being and explore the secret realm together? The cultivators of the Zhuanbing sect finally couldn't hold back. You know, the time for the secret realm to open is limited, only a few hours. If you miss it, you can only wait for the next time. But Xiao was occupied by the demon clan. This time, they used the Shenlai mountain to lead away most of the demon clan, but I'm afraid there won't be such a good opportunity next time. The most important thing is that this time when the secret realm opens, the 6-yang flower is just ripe. If you miss it, you can only wait another 1,000 years. But the lifespan of a Yuanying cultivator is only 500 years, and the Zhuanbing sect can't wait that long. In addition, their actions this time will inevitably arouse the vigilance of the demon clan, and then strengthen the protection of the secret realm. It seems that you have spent all your efforts and means to enter the secret realm. A 4th-level demon narrowed his eyes and smiled, It seems that there is some extraordinary treasure in the secret realm. At the same time, he was angry that the group of demon beasts that came out of the secret realm actually concealed a lot of things from them, so that they didn't know what the purpose of the Xuanbing sect was. The Xuanbing sect knew that they were anxious and leaked a flaw, but they had no choice. They couldn't continue to stalemate. The time for the secret realm portal to open was limited. I can agree to a temporary truce, but the number of cultivators entering the secret realm can only be half of our clan. After a quick communication, several demons from the demon clan put forward a more demanding condition. They didn't want to miss the opening of the secret realm. You know, this is a third-level secret realm with rich resources. At the beginning, they united with the monsters in the secret realm to slaughter the cultivators of Taixadao. Although they quickly occupied Taixia province, they did not have time to use the boundary stone to control this secret realm. Otherwise, facing the threat of Xuanbing sect, they could continue to drag it out until the secret realm portal was closed, and then open the secret realm by themselves. Anyway, the secret realm is in Taixia province. As long as they can keep the territory, they will not be afraid of not having the opportunity to enter. And with the degree of importance that Xuanbing sect attaches to this secret realm, it is expected that Daxushan will send more monsters to guard this place to ensure the Taixia province will not fall into the hands of other forces. This, without half of the cultivators, it would be too dangerous for the cultivators to enter the secret realm. But the monsters insisted on this condition and refused to give in. Seeing the time passing by, they finally bowed their heads and compromised. However, Xuanbing sect also put forward a condition, that is, no ambush or besiege of monks within a radius of 50 miles of the secret realm portal. With such a large area, it is impossible for the demons to watch over all of them. Okay, after considering it, the big demons nodded and agreed. Then, both sides swore by the inner demon and the great Dao, which was a reassurance to each other. Soon, both sides organized their manpower. The demons sent 53rd level monsters and more than 200 second level monsters, and the number of monks in Xuanbing sect was halved. And Daking, who wanted to leave, was very unfortunate to be picked. In front of several 4th level big demons, he had no power to resist at all. He could only pretend to be confused and enter the secret realm with other monsters. He now only hoped that Li Zhirui would not come to him, otherwise, even if there was space, he would be very dangerous. But the next moment, when Daking stepped into the secret realm portal, he suddenly noticed that the soul contract between the two dimmed for a moment, and then returned to normal in the next breath. If Brother Jiu saw this change, he should guess what it means, right? Duckwing could only pray silently. After a while of spinning, the scene around Duckwing became completely different. After he adjusted for a few breaths, he found himself in the middle of a huge lake, on a small island. Not far in front of him, there was a small lake emitting extremely rich spiritual energy, in which grew a green lotus and a small and exquisite spiritual turtle with a green body. Although most of the monsters living in the secret realm left when it was first opened, there were still some who did not leave, or did not catch up, or were in remote corners and did not know the news at all. Moreover, after so many years, many ordinary beasts in the secret realm have also become monsters and embarked on the road of cultivation. For some reason, at the first sight of the spiritual turtle, Duckwing's heart began to beat wildly, and no matter what means he had, he could not calm it down. 2 flowers bloom, each showing its own branch. But Li Zhirui, who was thousands of miles away, did see the flickering of the contract between the two. What is the reason for this? Li Zhirui frowned and pondered for a while, and finally got a more likely answer. Duckwing entered that secret realm. Although the secret realm is embedded in the boundary membrane and is part of the world, it is a semi-independent space after all, and there is a certain barrier between it and the Xuanitun world. Because they had never separated before, they did not notice this situation until now. Li Zhirui's face instantly became extremely ugly, because if nothing unexpected happened, there must be a large number of demons near the secret realm. He, a human cultivator, might be caught by them as soon as he approached. As for what would happen if he fell into the hands of the demons? Of course, he would be eaten alive. He couldn't think of any way now, and could only pray that Duckwing could return safely. But just when he was worried about Duckwing's safety, Duckwing was dating the spirit turtle. It was more prepared to say that Duckwing was luring the spirit turtle, wanting the spirit turtle to follow him out of the secret realm and return to Banyan Island. From then on, the two turtles would accompany each other for life and give birth to a nest of turtle cubs. Although the spirit turtle's cultivation was only in the middle stage of the second stage, Its spiritual intelligence was extremely high, higher than that of Daquing at the beginning. It was unknown whether it was a mutation or for other reasons. But if Li Zhirui was here, he would only need to take a glance to see what was going on. Because the green lotus growing in the spirit pond was a precious spiritual plant, a 4th level wisdom green lotus. The spirit turtle had such a high level of intelligence because it had swallowed the green lotus seeds. Moreover, the race of this spirit turtle was not simple either. She was exactly the direction of the Great Green's evolution, a 4th level green turtle. Chapter 283 Return. There may be many reasons why Daquing was moved, but it is undeniable that her origin from the Kinga clan is definitely a very important factor. Daquing described the environment of Wangxin Island and his status in the Li family in detail, but Kinga did not react to these. It was not until Daquing took out various elixirs from the storage ring that she approached and asked with her spiritual sense, "What are these?" She was able to keenly perceive these elixirs, which were of great help to her growth. These are elixirs, which can speed up the cultivation speed and let us break through as soon as possible. Daquing's eyes lit up, and she immediately pulled Li Zhirui out and said, "My contractor is an alchemist, who can refine many kinds of elixirs. If you are willing to be with me, you will never lack elixirs in the future." Kinga's heart was moved. She suddenly felt that Daquing was also very good looking. There was no such thing as reservedness in the demon clan. She agreed to Daquing very directly and said, "If you don't keep your word, I will join you." Because Daquing was still hiding his cultivation, Kinga did not think he was very powerful. Okay, Daquing was overjoyed and immediately handed over the 2nd level elixir in his hand, saying, "Take these elixir first. After a while, we will leave the secret realm and find a way to return to Wangxin Island." Daquing had a low-level spiritual plant jade card on his body, which specially raised a group of cloudfish to satisfy his appetite. When he left, he could let Kinga enter it and collect the spiritual pool in Kinglian. Kinga didn't quite understand what he meant, but she didn't care. She immediately picked up an elixir and swallowed it, feeling the rapidly growing mana in her danshin. "It really works," Kinga said happily. "If there are enough elixirs, I can break through in a few years." Shenli Mountain, the main hall of the sect. After this period of investigation, the reason why it took so long was mainly because they had to bypass the Great Snow Mountain and spend most of the time on the road. They finally knew the true purpose of Xuanbing sect. What a great Xuanbing sect! They actually let us attract the demon tribe and explore the secret realm by ourselves. A group of elders, especially those whose relatives and friends had died in the Jinden stage, were extremely angry and wanted to have a big fight with Xuanbing sect right now. Unfortunately, this was impossible. Not to mention that Xuanbing sect was stronger than them. Just the distance between the two families meant that a big fight could not break out. And it was because Xuanbing sect saw through this that they calculated Shenli Mountain without any care, without fear of retaliation. "Okay, don't talk nonsense," Sect Master once said impatiently, with a gloomy face. "Hurry up and let those monks guarding the border go back to their homes. After all, this group of monks consumes a lot of resources every day, and all of these resources are supplied by Shenli Mountain." It can be said that in this operation, Shenli Mountain not only lost a large number of monks, but also paid a lot of resources, a large part of which was used to compensate various forces. No matter what the causes, people died because they responded to your call. You can choose not to compensate, but you have to bear the corresponding consequences, such as people's hearts. Even if Shenli Mountain is now in charge of Yanli's Henjin, it dare not lose the hearts of all vassal forces. Although it can be suppressed with powerful force, this is not a long-term solution. That afternoon, Li Zhirui and others received the order to retreat from Shenli Mountain. Everyone can choose to go home directly or go to Shenli Mountain to receive compensation. But the Li family had no choice, because none of their clansmen died. Although they were all injured at the beginning, they were stopped in the end and no clansmen died. After several hours of flying, the group returned to Wangxin Island that night. Li Shilian, who was originally practicing, flew out immediately after hearing the noise. "Zhirui, why are you back at this time?" Although Li Shilian knew that no clansman had died through the fate card, he was completely relieved when he saw everyone return safely. However, when he looked around, he did not see Li Shiking and Li Shiren, and asked in confusion, "Where are the second brother and Shiren? Were they left behind by Shenli Mountain?" "Grandpa Yan," Li Zhirui shouted, but he didn't know how to talk to him. Did the second brother meet with an accident? But his life card is still fine. Li Shilian saw his reaction, and he felt a little uneasy. "Don't worry, I'm fine," Li Shiking, who was supported by Li Shiren, replied weakly. Second brother, you? When Li Shilian saw his appearance, his pupils shrank suddenly, and his face was full of disbelief. Zhirui, what's going on? Li Zhirui had no choice but to tell them what happened. After listening, Li Shilian did not speak for a long time, because he didn't know what to say at all. In the end, it was Li Shiking's cough that broke the silence at the scene, but it also touched everyone's heart, and they hurriedly asked him to go back to the cave to rest. This war is really, Li Shilian laughed bitterly and said bitterly, even if you become a giant in family, you are still something that others can throw away at will. Grandpa Yan, don't worry, I will make Shenlai Mountain pay the price, Li Zhirui promised with a serious expression. At the same time, I will try my best to buy a longevity pill for second grandpa. Longevity pill, an extremely precious elixir, the lowest grade is 3rd grade, and its value is even greater than that of Jinden. The 3rd grade longevity pill can increase life by 20 years, and the 4th grade longevity pill can increase life by 50 years. But no matter what kind of longevity pill it is, its value will not be less than 1 million spirit stones, and it is impossible to buy it with spirit stones. It must be exchanged with various precious spirit objects. Even Shenlai Mountain has to spend all its thoughts and means to get a longevity pill. Li Shilian certainly knew the value of the longevity pill, but he understood that this was Li Zhirui's intention, so he didn't say much, and said, your injuries are not healed yet, go back quickly. 2 golden elixirs in the family were injured. In order to prevent Yuan Mingzong from knowing the news, Li Shilian directly blocked the clan land. Except for some clan members who were busy, no one else was allowed to leave. Time passed quickly, and more than a month passed in the blink of an eye. I don't know how Daking is doing. One day, Li Zhirui, who had healed his injuries, opened his eyes, felt a contract in his sea of consciousness, and sighed helplessly. This contract can only let him know whether Daking is still alive, and there is no way to know other news. He decided that if Daking has not returned in another month, he will venture into Taixizhou to find Daking's whereabouts. Thank you for your support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Kidnapping. At the same time, Da Qing, who Li Zhirui had been thinking about, had already left the secret realm with the crowd. As for the green turtle, it naturally entered the spiritual plant jade card, and he would release it after he reached a safe place. During the time in the secret realm, Da Qing did not leave the spiritual pool, and spent the whole day with the green turtle, so it didn't take long for the relationship between the two to rise sharply, and then it came naturally, and everything that should be done was done. For this reason, Da Qing racked his brains to give the green turtle a name, called Mulinger, which is much better than his name. Because he was worried that he might be exposed, Da Qing deliberately chose to leave the secret realm when there were many people and it was easy to fish in troubled waters. At the moment of walking out of the secret realm, a refreshing medicinal fragrance suddenly entered his nose, making him instantly addicted to it. When he came back to his senses, he was surprised to find that his soul was actually a little stronger. What kind of high-grade spiritual medicine is this? Just a wisp of medicinal fragrance can enhance the soul? Although Da Qing was envious, he had no idea of robbing it. This is his nature, and because he is alone, he is no match for others. Besides, he doesn't even know who has the spiritual medicine, so how can he snatch it? What Da Qing doesn't know is that the monks and the demons have fought for the spiritual medicine. The demons know that the monks are seeking a precious treasure, so how can they stand by and watch? Some of the monsters who received the secret mission began to look for the whereabouts of the monks as soon as they entered the secret realm, and then hid themselves and followed them secretly. Their luck was pretty good. They followed a monk to a hidden place and saw the 6-yang flower that was about to bloom. Then both sides began to mobilize people. A large number of monks and monsters gathered here and started a cruel and bloody fight. The monks were still more skilled and successfully snatched the 6-yang flower with several 4th-level talismans. But unfortunately, this 6-yang flower was not complete. After all, the situation at that time made it impossible for the monks to dig carefully, so a monk took out the spiritual medicine directly after gaining the advantage, so that part of the rhizome of the 6-yang flower was lost. These things naturally fell into the hands of the demons. When Daquing left the secret realm, the demon beasts he encountered were exactly the demon team that had seized a part of the 6 yang flowers. As soon as the person came out, he reported the matter to several 4th-level demons. 6 yang flowers that can turn a soul into yang. The appearance of the 6 yang flowers instantly changed the faces of several demons. If the Zuanbing sect gave birth to a divine transformation cultivator, then these demon beasts would know what would happen without thinking too much. Fortunately, the cultivator did not get the complete 6 yang flowers, and there were some defects, so it should not be so easy to break through. Damn it, those demon beasts in the secret realm actually hid such important news, a demon roared angrily. In fact, this is not difficult to understand. After all, such a precious spiritual object, no matter who it is impossible to tell others. And they must want to hold it in their own hands. As for the 3rd-level demon beast who knew about the 6 yang flowers, he had already died in the secret realm. With such an important thing happening, how could several 4th-level demons stay? He immediately set off to fly towards the Great Snow Mountain. He had to tell the king the news. Without the 4th-level monster, the monsters quickly dispersed, giving Daquing a chance to escape. Without alarming any monster, Daquing successfully broke away from the herd. Just as he was about to fly into the sky and wanted to return to Wangxin Island as soon as possible, he suddenly heard a noise behind him. Turning his head, he found that it was a very beautiful 2nd-level bird, flying behind him with its wings spread. Is this a white-feathered swan, a 3rd-level water monster? It is said to have a trace of swan blood. Since you are following me, it is also a kind of fate. Come back to Wangxin Island with me. Before he finished speaking, Daquing took it down directly, sealed its magic power, and knocked it unconscious, and then put it into the spiritual plant jade card. Instructing Mulinger not to eat the white-feathered swan, Daquing began to fly towards Wangxin Island. He did not choose to fly on land because it was too easy to be discovered. Daquing first took a detour to the east, entered the boundless sea, and then directly escaped into the sea water. When they were far enough away, he released Mulinger, and the two swam back to Wangxin Island together. In the offshore area, the strength of the water monsters was not very strong, so with Daquing's 3rd-level strength, there were no twists and turns along the way, and they returned to Wangxin Island very smoothly. During this time, Mulinger was full of curiosity about the sea area, and some strange things she saw wanted to come up, so the two spent some more time on the road. As the only 3rd-level spirit beast of the Li family, Daquing had the same jade card as the Li family members, and most people knew him. Daquing took Mulinger to Li Zhirui's cave, and when they arrived at the door, they actually felt a little homesick, and hesitated to go forward. Creaking, Li Zhirui, who was practicing, frowned when he noticed that the cave was opened, but then reacted, immediately began to stop practicing, and then rushed out. You're finally back. Li Zhirui looked at the intact decking and breathed a sigh of relief, but still asked worriedly, you're not injured? He knew that Daquing had entered a secret realm, but he didn't care about his gains, but only worried about whether he was injured. I'm fine, Daquing said, and quickly released Mulinger and the spirit bird, saying, 9th brother, Linger is my Taoist partner, and this silly bird was met by my son on the way back, and then I caught it. When Li Zhirui heard this, he immediately ignored his sadness and looked at Mulinger seriously. He soon discovered her identity and said in surprise, 4th grade green turtle? You have a good eye. After going out, not only was he not injured, but he also brought back a Taoist partner. Although he is only at the 2nd level now, as long as there are enough spiritual pills to replenish, he will soon be able to form a pill and transform. As for the white-feathered swan, if it were placed at other times, Li Zhirui would still pay a little attention to it, but now he just took a look and retracted his gaze. By the way, Brother Jiu, look at what this is. I found these in the place where Linger grew up. Daquing handed over the J token of spiritual plants. 4th grade Enlightenment Azure Lotus, 4th grade Starlight Spirit Water. Seeing these two precious spiritual objects, Li Zhirui couldn't help but sigh that there are indeed huge differences between people. When he went out to practice, he didn't have such good luck as Daquing. Not only did he find a Taoist partner, but he also got such precious spiritual objects. You can transplant the Azure Lotus to the cave, but you can leave the Starlight Spirit Water. Envious, Li Zhirui came up with an idea. Chapter 285 Annexation. Daquing naturally had no objection to this, because Li Zhirui's cave was one of the places with the most concentrated spiritual energy in Wangxin Island Mountain, and other places might not allow a fourth-level spiritual plant to grow healthily. As for why it was not planted directly in the space? Because this green lotus was Mulinger's personal property, and although she was Daking's Taoist partner, it was not impossible for her to leak secrets. Unless she was willing to swear a Taoist oath. I will hand this white-feathered swan over to the family and see how much contribution value I can convert to you. You can take Mulinger to rest in the cave. After saying that, Li Zhirui got up and left. In addition to doing what he said, he would also go to the Redwood Market to see Jiang Fengwu to see if he could confirm some kind of relationship. The reason why Li Zhirui had a sudden idea was that he was stimulated by Daking. A spiritual turtle had a Taoist partner, but he didn't. The second was that the relationship between the two of them had been delayed for so many years, and it was time to confirm it. Grandpa Yan, Li Shilian, who was tending to the spiritual medicine, looked up after a while and said with a smile, "How come you have time to come to me today? Is there something? You are a busy man." "If I had nothing to do, I would not dare to disturb you," Li Zhirui joked while taking out the white-feathered swan and explaining to him the origin of this spiritual beast. In fact, Li Zhirui did not lie, because Li Shilian was indeed very busy every day. The family opened up a large number of spiritual fields and cultivated various spiritual beasts. Although many clansmen helped, the most core and critical steps were still completed by him alone. However, even though Li Shilian was a giant and cultivator, he gradually became a little overwhelmed. After all, whether it was spiritual fields or spiritual beasts, it was a very tiring job, and this was still a batch of tasks. What a good thing. Li Shilian's eyes were immediately filled with joy. "I didn't expect Daking to have such luck. The third-grade spirit beast is still quite precious to the Li family. You know, there are still a large number of clansmen who have contracted spirit beasts of the second grade. Only clansmen with good qualifications are qualified to contract the third grade. Grandpa Yan, you go first. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Without waiting for Li Shilian to answer, Li Zhirui walked away quickly. 2 flowers bloom, each showing its own beauty. In the market. I don't know how Zhirui is doing now. Jiang Fengwu's beautiful eyes showed a trace of worry. It has been so long since the incident, and the news of the war has long been spread. As long as you ask a little, you can know the situation of the war. And she didn't see Li Zhirui coming to her for a long time, and she thought he had encountered an accident. Fortunately, he dragged him to deliver the news later, which made Jiang Fengwu feel relieved. "Fellow Taoist Jiang, are you in the room?" A crisp male voice suddenly came from outside the door. Why does this voice sound so familiar? This is... Jiang Fengwu was stunned for a moment, and almost jumped up from the bed in surprise, and then opened the door as quickly as possible. She glanced at him obscurely, and found no signs of injury, but she would not think that Li Shiking was not injured. After all, he had been recuperating for a long time. "Dao Yao Jiang, long time no see." Li Zhirui had a bright smile on his face, and his eyes were full of tenderness. Long time no see. Jiang Fengwu's heart was beating wildly, and she could only suppress it forcibly to avoid being known by the other party. "Actually, I came to see you this time because I have something very important to do." Li Zhirui's expression suddenly became serious, and he said, "This is not a place to talk. Dao Yao, come with me, okay?" Jiang Fengwu vaguely guessed what was going on, and agreed without hesitation. On the spirit boat suspended in the sky, Li Zhirui and Jiang Fengwu stood opposite each other. "I want to ask Dao Yao Jiang, are you willing to become a Taoist partner with me?" This time he was very straightforward and expressed his meaning directly. "Do you know?" Jiang Fengwu did not answer, but talked about the past of their getting along. "I have been waiting for you to say this for a long time." Ha 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 ha. Seeing that Jiang Fengwu agreed to him, Li Zhirui was very happy, and his laughter spread throughout the market, making everyone puzzled. "Fengwu, don't worry, I will definitely hold a grand wedding for you." Jiang Fengwu's eyes flashed with a trace of longing, but in the end he refused and said, "There is no need to go to great lengths and waste a lot of spiritual objects. Just a simple and lively one will do. Just wait and see me." However, an unexpected incident involved all of Li Zhirui's energy and time, and he had no time to design and prepare the wedding. The mingling of Yuan Mingzhuang fell. And as soon as he died, the numerous vassal forces under his command began to bite Yuan Mingzhuang and rob various resources. No one knew the real cause of death of this giant and monk, but the person was already dead, so there was no need to be sharp. What the Li family has to do now is to snatch the things left by Yuan Mingzong, like those small forces. Of course, the Li family doesn't care about the spiritual objects they are looking for. What they care about is the medicine garden that Yuan Mingzong has cultivated for many years, as well as this vast unowned land. The Qingjian sect is a little far away. After discussing it internally, the Li family finally decided to give up the third-level spiritual vein. The main reason is that the Li family now has only 3 giant cultivators, and Li Shiking is still recovering from his injuries, so he can't spare any manpower to go there. Of course, in the absence of giant forces nearby, no one dares to compete with the Li family for the spiritual vein, and they all consciously avoid it. As for the 500 Li territory of Yunping's Hao, the Li family will not let go easily, and will definitely hold it firmly in their hands. Grandpa Yan, we will come forward and take Yunping's Hao directly, and then use the island-moving magic to move the nearby islands to the middle of the 200 miles of sea between the mainland and Wangxin Island, so that they can be connected as a whole, although it is very troublesome and requires a giant cultivator to spend a long time to complete. It is a good thing for the Li family, because it can control this piece of land more conveniently and quickly. After the 2 pieces of land are merged, the area controlled by the Li family will exceed 1,000 miles in radius, which is enough for the Li family to develop for a long time. Okay, we will work harder at that time. Li Shilian nodded in agreement. Li Chengmo said, I want to distribute the third-level spiritual vein in Guangqing's Hao to various forces in Yunping's Hao, so that they can all move there and use it together. Li Zhirui heard this and his eyes lit up. Li Chengmo's idea is good. The Li family does not have strength now, but it does not mean that they will not have it in the future. But during this period of development, they can't just waste it there, right? Then Li Chengmo came up with this idea, let these small forces occupy it together and unite to protect this third-level spiritual vein. Chapter 286 Fake Death. As for whether these families want to stay here in the future, that depends on whether they have the strength to do so. Besides, the Li family is not so unkind. Whether it is this migration or the next move, they will give certain compensation. In addition, the Li family will build a large ferry city on it to attract nearby casual cultivators to enter it, which can not only earn spiritual stones, but also check and balance those small forces. Leave this matter to me, Li Zhirui said, but before that, we have to drive those disciples of Yuanming sect down the mountain. In fact, there are not many cultivators on Yuanming mountain now, and their strength is very weak. After all, in order to preserve the inheritance, Yuanming sect secretly arranged a large number of elite disciples to leave. The cultivators who are still in the mountain now are almost all early and middle stage disciples of key training. Those who have a little strength know that Yuanming sect is about to overthrow when mingling falls. After collecting a large number of spiritual objects, they quietly leave. I will personally come forward to drive those monks away. Chengmo, you arrange for the clan members to notify the various forces in Yunping's Hao and Guangqing's Hao, and ask them to rush to Yuanming Mountain in 10 days. Li Zhirui made such arrangements because he was worried that mingling would fake his death and set an ambush to kill Li family monks in Yuanming Mountain. If he took too many clan members with him, he would not be able to protect everyone if they encountered danger. Yes, Li Chengmo's eyes condensed slightly, and he immediately understood Li Zhirui's concerns, but he did not say much. First, because the family's strength was not enough and could not help, and second, he believed that with Li Zhirui's strength, he could protect himself and get out even if he encountered danger. After everyone left, Li Shilian said with some concern, Zhirui, why don't I go with you? We can take care of each other. Grandpa Yan, you stay in charge of the family. What if mingling faked his death and set up this trap to lure the tiger away from the mountain? Li Zhirui shook his head. In fact, from the fact that Yuan Mingzong split into 2 to protect himself, mingling, the giant's Hanren, did not follow him to leave, we can see that he has a deep hatred for the Li family. In addition, the Li family did not know much about the situation on the battlefield. After all, the 4th-level monster suddenly appeared, countless cultivators died on the spot, and the scene was extremely chaotic. They were also busy escaping. When they heard that mingling had fallen, they went to inquire about it. A long time had passed, so how could they find out anything? You are right. Hearing this, Li Shilian had to sigh and said, then be careful, don't worry, I will take Daking with me. Li Zhirui nodded. He valued his life very much and would not walk into a place where there might be an ambush without preparation. When many cultivators of the Li family began to act, Li Zhirui also took decking and quietly climbed up Yuanming Mountain. The huge spiritual consciousness spread silently to explore the situation in the mountain. After half an hour, Li Zhirui did not find anything wrong. It seems that mingling really failed? Li Zhirui's mind was full of thoughts. After thinking for a while, he showed up. The majestic pressure enveloped the entire mountain. And the sound of thunder sounded in the sky. This place will belong to my Li family in the future. I give you 1 hour to leave here quickly. When all the cultivators heard this, their luck and their hearts suddenly disappeared. Even if they were sad and desolate in their hearts, no one dared to question a giant in Tenrun. They could only pack up their spiritual objects honestly and walk down the mountain in silence. At this time, Mingling, who was hiding in a special space that could avoid the search of divine consciousness, saw that Li Zhirui was reluctant to fall, and came alone, so he knew that the other party still had doubts about his death. But he didn't have time to wait any longer. In that battle, he was lucky to escape from the hands of the 4th-level monster, but unfortunately, he was only hit by the aftermath and was seriously injured on the spot. If it weren't for the hatred in his heart that kept him awake and used the secret method to escape, he would have died in Taixizhao long ago. But the result was that his already seriously injured body became broken and his foundation was damaged. He would not live long. He wanted to take advantage of his remaining combat power to fake his death and set up a trap, hoping to kill some Li family monks to vent his anger. Unfortunately, only the cautious Li Zhirui came. Buzz! A buzzing sound suddenly sounded, and the spiritual light intertwined, forming a formation in the blink of an eye. You are not dead yet. Li Zhirui's eyes condensed, and he secretly thought that he was lucky that he did not bring other clansmen with him, and fortunately he had not fallen. Since you set up a trap by faking your death, I will send you to death today. Li Zhirui's voice was full of murderous intent, and his first move was an extremely sharp killing move. There is no need to say more about the grievances between the two families. Even if we don't talk about this, for the sake of future development, the relationship between the two families will not be very good. After all, whether it is Wangxin Island or Yunping's, they are too small to accommodate a second major force. The water and wood divine light soared into the sky, turning into a dragon and a phoenix and crashing into the formation. HMPH, a cold snort suddenly sounded, and with a flash of spiritual light, Li Zhirui's attack was easily blocked by him. Looking at Li Zhirui with hatred, it's still uncertain who will win today. On the surface, Mingling is in the middle stage of the golden elixir, while Li Zhirui is only in the early stage of the golden elixir, and his cultivation is not as good as the other party, but many times, cultivation is not completely linked to combat power. If there is a large realm between them, the two sides are far inferior in terms of mana, both in quality and quantity, so under normal circumstances, it is rare to win across a large realm. If it happens, it goes without saying that it is either the core figure of the top power or a rare genius in the world. But if there is only a small realm difference, the gap in strength between the two sides is not that big, and it is not impossible to win in battle. Especially now, Mingling is seriously injured. He can now fight with Li Zhirui, relying on the spiritual elixir and prior preparations, such as sealing the meridians and swallowing the wolf and tiger medicine. But the longer time drags on, the worse his condition becomes. If it continues like this, I'm afraid that Li Zhirui won't even need to do anything, his body will collapse on its own. Really? That person is destined to be you, Li Zhirui said with disdain. He didn't think he would lose to the other party. The magic power in the golden elixir poured out, and giant dragons rose into the sky. The two largest ones seemed to have spiritual wisdom, lingering around Li Zhirui and acting as a defense. The dragons roared and rushed towards Mingling, wanting to tear him into pieces. Although Mingling was about to die, perhaps it was a last gasp, and he was able to exert his original 7th or 8th level of combat power. Seeing that he was surrounded by dragons, he immediately sacrificed a tripod furnace. Just a slight shake, the dragons were like young swallows returning to their nests, and all of them were immersed in it. Chapter 287 Anger. Life Magic Weapon. Li Zhirui still remembered that this real person was a weapon refiner, so it was normal for him to have this type of life magic weapon. Ahem, after a battle, Mingling, who had consumed too much mana, couldn't help coughing a few times, and his breath dropped a little. Are you so weak already? Li Zhirui's sarcastic voice followed by the vines that covered the sky. Why don't you want to die quietly? Looking at Mingling, who was dwarfed by the vines, moving left and right in the vines, and whose breath was becoming increasingly weak, Li Zhirui sighed helplessly. As a weapon refiner, Mingling rarely went out for training, had ordinary combat power, and was seriously injured. How could he be Li Zhirui's opponent? The two sides only fought for a moment, and Mingling was forced into a very embarrassing situation. Mingling didn't expect that he would be so unbearable. He thought that he could at least injure Li Zhirui and then die with him in his arms. But now it seems that all this is just his fantasy. In his rage, he spat out a mouthful of black turbid blood, and the world in his eyes began to blur. Ha, die with me. As the last word fell, an extremely powerful explosion erupted above Yuanmingzhuang. The terrifying shock wave crushed everything around into fragments and ashes, and even Yuanming Mountain began to collapse, with large pieces of rock falling down madly. When Mingling was about to self-destruct, Li Zhirui, who had already fled dozens of miles away, silently watched the natural disaster in front of him. The self-destruction of a giant and cultivator, even if he has little mana in his body, can also burst out with terrifying power that is enough to wipe out cultivators of the same level, Li Zhirui muttered to himself. At the same time, in a sacred mountain thousands of miles away, Zheng Xianming, who was sitting cross-legged and practicing, suddenly heard the sound of a jade web breaking. At first, he was stunned, but as if he had thought of something, his right hand trembled and reached into his arms. The extremely rare jade token that he had been keeping close to his body since he left Yuanming's sect was broken into two pieces. Junior brother, Zheng Xianming was like a madman, constantly repeating these two words. His whole face was already wet with tears, and his whole body was filled with a strong sadness that was almost tangible. The Li family. It must have been the Li family. Zheng Xianming was like a madman, with a bloodthirsty red light flashing in his eyes, and he growled with gritted teeth, "Junior brother, don't worry, I will definitely avenge you. I must make the Li family pay the price." Li Zhirui, who was standing in front of Yuanming Mountain and looking at the ruins on the ground, suddenly felt cold all over and frowned immediately. As a giant in Zhenren, his body is already extremely powerful, and ordinary temperatures will not make him feel cold or hot at all. But he also figured out what was going on, and coupled with the things in front of him, he could only suppress it temporarily and wait to explore it later. Because of an explosion, Yuanming Mountain was almost cut in half. Li Zhirui looked at the mountain in front of him that had become much lower, and sighed helplessly. The spiritual veins were hidden deep underground and were not affected by the explosion, but the spiritual objects, books and so on the mountain were almost all destroyed in the explosion. The Li family not only had to clean up the area nearby, but also had to rebuild various buildings and open up spiritual fields. It can be foreseen that the clansmen will be very busy for a long time to come. But there is still a troublesome thing at hand. That is, Li Zhirui had previously asked Li Chengmo to call the leaders of each family to Yuanming Mountain and ask them to move to Qingjian Mountain. But how can Yuanmingzhuang find so many people in this situation now? Forget it, let's go directly to Yunqingfang City. It's not far anyway. I think those people are very righteous and will not have any objections. Time passed quickly, and soon it came to 10 days later. Everyone looked at the much shorter Yuanming Mountain, with a gleam in their eyes, and they didn't know what they were thinking. But there is one thing they all know, that is, from now on, the Li family is the master of this land. Sorry, I accidentally collapsed Yuanming Mountain. It's inconvenient to entertain you. Please go to Yunqing Market, several elders of the Li family said when they saw the spirit ship coming. Even if they were a little dissatisfied, they didn't dare to express it. After all, the current Li family was not someone they dared to offend. The previous auction house was now used by the Li family as a temporary meeting hall. It was previously the property of Yuanming Mountain, but now it belongs to the Li family. Meet the real person. When Li Zhirui walked onto the round stage, all the Zishu in the audience stood up and saluted. No need to be polite, sit down. Li Zhirui waved his hand, and after everyone was seated, he said, "Today, I summoned you all to announce a good news," but most of them didn't feel happy. As the overlord of this place, how could the Li family give them benefits for no reason? Sure enough, with Li Zhirui's words, everyone quickly understood what the Li family meant. Are you trying to use our power to guard the third-level spirit vein? It seems that the strength of the Li family is not that exaggerated. No one is a fool, and they would naively think that the Li family let them go, which means they gave them this spiritual vein. Spiritual veins are very precious resources, not to mention that this is a third-level spiritual vein. How could they give it away easily? But is the Li family so confident that they will not let a family give birth to golden elixir and lose a third-level spiritual vein? Everyone had different thoughts, and various ideas were floating in their minds, but no one asked. In addition to handing over 30% of the spiritual objects produced on King Jian Mountain, the rest will be distributed by each of you. Li Zhirui ignored the reactions of the audience and said to himself, at the same time, my Li family will also build a huge fairy city on King Jian Mountain that can accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. These words really surprised everyone present. Such a huge fairy city, how much resources and time will it take to succeed? Could it be that the Li family is just drawing a pie in the sky? Just want to attract them to help guard the third-level spiritual vein. Some people actually thought so naively. But some smart people saw the real purpose behind this. The Li family is trying to attract a large number of independent cultivators to King Jian Mountain. In this way, this spiritual vein will be guarded by their families and a large number of independent cultivators. It will not only be safer, but also supervise each other. After all, spiritual veins can be mined directly for spiritual stones. By then, there may be a daring cultivator who dares to mine the spiritual veins of King Jian Mountain. As for the attraction that some people think of, the Li family has never thought about it this way, because those families have to go even if they don't want to. There is no second choice. Otherwise, they will either leave the Li family's territory voluntarily or leave passively. Thank you all for your support. The update is a bit late. Chapter 288 Hitting Up. Do you have any opinions? Li Zhirui asked with a smile, looking very friendly. But the more this happened, the more terrified everyone felt. Although Li Zhirui was very mysterious, the outside world knew very little about him. They only knew that he was a third-level alchemist, but no matter what, he was a Jinden's Henren. In the eyes of Jinden, practicing key and building foundations were just ants on the side of the road, which could be easily stepped on. How could they talk to them in a friendly manner? No opinion. We should also thank this Henren for his kindness, allowing us to live in the third-level spirit vein. Yes, yes, others spoke up in agreement, and no one dared to say a word against Li Zhirui or the Li family. That's great. Li Zhirui nodded with satisfaction when he saw that everyone was so understanding. He said, as compensation, each family that migrated will receive 10,000 spiritual stones and the right to purchase a foundation building pill. The foundation building spiritual medicine planted by the Li family will mature in less than 10 years. With his current alchemy level, not to mention an 80% or 90% success rate, at least one furnace can produce 6 or 7 foundation building pills. At the beginning, the Li family received 10 mature foundation building spiritual medicines with spiritual seeds. Alchemist Li Zhirui consumed several of them, and there were about 50 or 60 spiritual seeds left. Some spiritual medicines died for various reasons, and in the end there were about 53 spiritual medicines. According to a 60% success rate, the Li family could get 318 foundation building pills. In fact, there was definitely more than that. Li Zhirui was very confident in his current alchemy level. Besides, no matter how difficult it was to refine a foundation building pill, it was only a second-level spiritual pill. In addition, Li Zhirui's space also contains more than a dozen or 20 foundation-building spiritual medicines, which were left over from when he tried to refine foundation-building pills and used space to ripen spiritual medicines. At that time, even if Li Zhirui took out 400 foundation-building pills, it would be easy, and the Li family could not digest so many foundation-building pills in a short time. Of course, the Li family would not refine so many foundation-building pills at one time. After all, no matter how well they were sealed, the medicinal effects of the spiritual pills would fade over time. Li Zhirui is now using the foundation-building pills that were originally to be sold as compensation, so that each family can willingly move to King Jian Mountain. However, this purchase qualification is also good for them, at least they don't have to bid with others and save a sum of spiritual stones. Perhaps for the Li family, tens of thousands of spiritual stones are nothing, even the monthly tribute of the clan members far exceeds this number, but for those foundation-building families, this is a large sum of spiritual stones. So as soon as Li Zhirui finished speaking, all the forces stood up impatiently and expressed their willingness to move to King Jian Mountain. Yet, Li Zhirui responded, turned to Li Chengmo and said, I still have things to do, and I'll leave it to you to deal with next. Chengmo knows, although Li Chengmo is only in the early stage of foundation building, no one dares to look down on him, just because he is the patriarch of the Li family, and in a sense, he can represent the Li family. Li Zhirui didn't pay attention to the following things, and handed them all to Li Chengmo and other elders. I believe that with their abilities, they can definitely complete it successfully. This is indeed the case. Not long after, each family began to relocate, and a large number of forces poured into Qingjian Mountain to help the Li family guard this place. So, in the next period of time, Yunping's Hao could see many migrating teams, some of whom used spirit ships to soar in the sky, and some formed armies and ran on the ground. As for their original clan land and mountain gate, they are still theirs. After all, the Li family cannot drive away all the small forces. If that were the case, the Li family would become a lonely family. Moreover, the Li family could not spare so many people to manage so many spiritual veins. In the final analysis, the Li family rose too fast, in too short a time, and did not have a deep foundation. Even though the Li family began to encourage childbirth and offered a lot of benefits and subsidies, since Li Zhirui became the acting patriarch, the number of clan members was far less than those of the old Jinden families. However, this kind of thing cannot be rushed, and can only be slowly weighted. Sorry, it happened suddenly. Zhang Fengwu shook his head and interrupted him, saying, "No need to apologize, I can understand, but some things are too dangerous. When you must do it in the future, you must tell me in advance, so that I don't worry all day long." Okay. Li Zhirui was stunned for a moment, and then smiled. It's strange to say that although the two have been ambiguous for a long time, they have only been together for a few days, but they give each other a feeling of mutual support. I plan to tell the elders about this matter and then plan our wedding. What do you think? Li Zhirui asked a little nervously. He didn't know why he felt nervous. Was he worried that Zhang Fengwu would reject him? But Zhang Fengwu's eyes flashed with joy, but then turned into sorrow, and said, "What if the elders in your family don't like me?" Ha 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 ha. Hearing this, Li Zhirui couldn't help laughing. Seeing that Zhang Fengwu was about to get angry, he quickly explained, "The elders have long wanted to match us up. Now that you agree to join the Li family, I don't know how happy they will be." Apart from other things, Zhang Fengwu's identity as a Jinden cultivator was enough for them to agree. "Don't worry. Second Grandpa and the others won't refuse." With Li Zhirui's promise, Zhang Fengwu's worries were alleviated a little, and she excitedly discussed the wedding in her mind. "Okay, I will try my best to meet your requirements," Li Zhirui agreed with a look of indulgence. He would not be like others who agreed to everything, but in the end could not do it, which disappointed people. Instead of doing this, it is better to take precautions in advance and then try your best to complete it, which will give her a surprise. The sky gradually darkened and the sun set in the west. I should go back. Although the two have been together, they have not yet married and have not made the final breakthrough. Because this is very important for cultivators, of course, except for those playboys. Li Zhirui and Zhang Fengwu are both Jinden cultivators, with powerful Yuan Yin and Yuan Yang in their bodies. When practicing together, the Yin and Yang blend with each other, which can enhance each other's magic power and even allow people to go further. And because of years of hard practice, Li Zhirui is now at the peak of the early stage of Jinden. He has a hunch that on the day of his wedding, he will be able to break through naturally. Zhang Fengwu will stop at the early stage of Jinden because of insufficient accumulation, but it can also save her several years of practice. Okay, be careful on the way. Zhang Fengwu moved slightly, but he was reluctant to leave Li Zhirui's arms. Li Zhirui leaned over and put his ear close to her, and his hot breath quickly heated up the room. Chapter 289 Wedding. You are finally going to have a result, Li Shiking, who had become much older, said with a look of relief. Ever since he burned his lifespan, he has been healing his wounds. It was not until some time ago that he stabilized his injuries and stopped losing his vitality. Unexpectedly, as soon as he came out, he heard the good news about Li Zhirui. You have to work hard and try to have more children, Li Shilian on the side said with a smile and joked. But they all knew in their hearts that it was not an easy thing for Li Zhirui to have children. You know, the fertility of cultivators is not as good as that of mortals, especially the higher the cultivation, the worse the fertility. Li Zhirui and Zhang Fengwu are both Jinden cultivators, and it is not easy to give birth to offspring. However, once pregnant, the possibility of a child having spiritual roots is much greater than that of both parents being mortals. And the higher the cultivation of the parents, the better the aptitude is likely to be. Li Zhirui smiled and said nothing. He wanted to have a child, but he couldn't force it, so he could only go with the flow. This is the first giant and cultivator to marry into our Li family. The banquet must be held in a grand manner to show the family's momentum and heritage. Li Zhirui gave many instructions before letting the two leave. However, according to his plan, at least 200,000 spirit stones will be needed to organize it, or even more. Zhirui, if you have any requirements for the wedding, you can raise them, and the family will try its best to meet them. Li Zhirui patted Li Zhirui on the shoulder and hurried to take care of his spiritual medicines. The foundation building spiritual medicine will mature in a few years, and there are all kinds of precious spiritual objects. He really can't rest assured if he doesn't check them every day. Li Zhirui also turned around and returned to the cave, but as soon as he pushed the door, he saw Daking and Mu Linger being affectionate with each other. He rolled his eyes and walked straight back to the room. Speaking of which, his two spirit beasts actually tasted the taste earlier than him. From this aspect, he is far inferior to Daking and Zhaoking. Especially Zhaoking, who spent the whole day among the eagles, was so happy and carefree, and her bloodline was spread out so much that the qualifications of the Li family's jade-billed eagles were improved a little. Maybe it was because of this reason, or because Zhaoking did not work hard to cultivate without supervision, that he was still hovering in the late stage of foundation building. I will show you when the time comes, Li Zhirui muttered softly, then closed the door and began to prepare something for his wedding. Early the next morning, Li Zhirui ran to the market and told Jiang Fengwu that the family agreed to let them become Taoist couples. Because of this matter, I didn't sleep well all night, Jiang Fengwu said with a blush. Although Li Zhirui gave him a positive answer, she still couldn't stop feeling uneasy in her heart, so that she was so worried last night that she couldn't practice and couldn't sleep. The two exchanged feelings again, and Li Zhirui left the market at sunset. As I said, the yin and yang of the two are very important, and they must be prepared. Time flies, and more than a month has passed in the blink of an eye. In order to prepare for Li Zhirui's wedding, many clansmen were very busy. But they were not dissatisfied at all. What is the Li family doing by buying so many spiritual objects during this period? Is there going to be another war? A casual cultivator asked in confusion. You didn't know. The cultivator next to him looked at him curiously and explained, the Li family is preparing spiritual objects for a wedding. In fact, the Li family has not yet publicized this matter. After all, some news has leaked out. Wedding? Who and who? Two giant and cultivators are getting married. When that day comes, maybe we can also get some good things. Uncle Jiu, this is the invitation we designed. Can you take a look? If it's okay, I will leave and send people to deliver the invitations to various places. Li Zhirui took a serious look and thought it was not bad, so he decided to agree to it and said, the wedding will be held in 10 days. When you go out, remember the time to avoid missing it. The Li family is going to hold a wedding. Why did you report such a small matter back? An old man said impatiently, preparing to throw the jade slip into the trash can. He was a person who was in charge of preliminary intelligence analysis at Shenlai Mountain. With years of experience and analysis, he could know the following contents with just one glance, thus reducing unnecessary time as much as possible. However, he made a mistake this time. With the invitation of the Li family, more and more forces learned about the news, and without exception, they were all very surprised. Because Jiang Fengwu is a female giant and cultivator who was born as a casual cultivator. Her joining would make the Li family stronger. With the complex emotions of envy and jealousy, everyone came to the brand new Banyan Island. From the landing point, there was a road paved with spiritual jade, and because of the wedding, a long red carpet was also laid. When they arrived at the square, they saw a mist covering it, creating a fairy atmosphere. Nearly 100 tables were placed with some refreshing small spiritual food and a pot of fragrant spiritual tea. When the main dishes were served, there would be several second-grade spiritual food, and the giant and cultivators would have an extra pot of third-grade spiritual wine and a plate of third-grade spiritual fruit. And these things alone cost the Li family tens of thousands of spiritual stones. Time passed by little. When the auspicious time came, regardless of those cultivators who had not yet arrived, Li Zhirui and Jiang Fengwu were immediately asked to come out and get married in the blessing of everyone. This kind of etiquette is not useless, but it tells the world that the two of them have become Taoist companions, and from now on, their destiny will blend and share weal and woe. In the world of cultivation, there is no such bad habit as making trouble in the bridal chamber, and the bride does not have to stay in the room all the time. When the time comes, the two can go back. Congratulations to you for marrying a beautiful bride, the elder of Shanli Mountain said with a smile. I think after tonight, you will have a breakthrough in your cultivation. It should be said that Li Zhirui's cultivation speed is indeed extraordinary, much faster than that of ordinary dual spiritual roots. Isn't the elder about to break through too? Li Zhirui smiled slightly, toasted a glass of wine, and went to find other cultivators. The elder raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't expect that Li Zhirui, whose cultivation level was one level lower than his, could actually see that he was on the verge of a breakthrough. It seems that the sect still attaches too little importance to him. The elder thought silently in his heart. After 3 rounds of drinking, Li Zhirui said goodbye because he was too drunk, and at the same time he pulled Jiang Fengwu, who was chatting with several female giant cultivators. As soon as she entered the room, Jiang Fengwu's face turned red, and she lowered her head, looking very shy and cute, completely different from her usual self. My lady, the night is short, let's not waste time. Li Zhirui saw this, and his heart moved slightly, and he couldn't help but tease. But who would have thought that Jiang Fengwu would suddenly pull him over when she heard this, and covered him with her soft lips. Chapter 290 Return. Under the moon and flowers, teasing the clouds and rain. Of course that's impossible. After all, this is the first time for the two of them. As cultivators, it is impossible to only pursue the joy of love. When the yin and yang of both sides meet, they tacitly operate the dual cultivation method at the same time, absorbing spiritual energy from the outside world and integrating yin and yang into magic power. The movement of the two giant cultivators swallowing and exhaling spiritual energy together is not small, at least Li Shiking and others can sense it. Maybe it won't be long before Zhiru can break through the middle stage of Jinden. Li Shiking looked at the movement above Li Zhirui's cave and said with satisfaction. Although he broke through many years earlier than Li Zhirui, he is far inferior to Li Zhirui in terms of cultivation. And this is not only reflected in the mind, but also in the qualifications, resources for cultivation, and even the time for cultivation. So Li Shiking has long been unable to see through Li Zhirui's specific cultivation, only knowing that he is a head higher than him. Li Shilian, who was standing by, also said with a smile, Zhiru has broken through, Feng Wu has joined the family. In this way, the family not only has one more mid-stage giant, but also one more giant cultivator. Yes, Li Shiking's face was full of emotion, but he seemed to have remembered something, and a trace of loneliness flashed across his eyes. He said softly, I don't know what the current situation of Ziyuan's Hexun is. These two are the last members of the Li family who may have broken through the giant in the past 10 years, but now, there is no news at all. Especially Li Zhiru, who made him even more worried. Because she had been in seclusion and could not break through the bottleneck before, she went to take Suzhou to train, wanting to break the shackles between life and death. But who would have thought that not long after, an extremely tragic and terrifying war broke out in Suzhou. Countless cultivators died there. Li Shiking tried to find Li Zhiru at first, so that they could take care of each other, but before he found her, the 4th level demon took action. Fortunately, the life card that Li Zhiru placed in the family was still intact, which meant that she was still alive. But what they didn't know was that although Li Zhiru was still alive, her injuries were very serious. If she hadn't been far enough away, had several 3rd-level talismans in her hands, and had a flying spirit beast, she would probably have become the food of the monsters like other cultivators. In Suzhou, in an extremely remote low mountain, Li Zhiru, whose face was as pale as gold paper and in a state of embarrassment, was hiding inside to heal her wounds. Ahem, although she was not feeling well, Li Zhirui's eyes were unusually bright. Because of this escape from death, she successfully broke through the bottleneck. As long as she recovered from her injuries, she could return to the family to start a retreat and break through. Li Zhirui's injuries were very serious, but fortunately, her origin foundation was not damaged. In addition, she was also an alchemist and had many elixirs for healing. But she had to be careful and control the speed of absorbing spiritual energy, because she was in Suzhou, the territory of the monster clan. And in this way, her healing speed naturally slowed down. I don't know what's going on with the tribe members. Although Li Zhiru didn't join the tribe members, she knew that the Li family would inevitably be unable to escape from this war. She only hoped that the tribe members would be safe. Suddenly, a rustling sound came, and Li Zhiru was so frightened that she quickly propped herself up, tightly holding the spirit sword, and was ready to summon her contracted spirit beast at any time. The water spirit turtle and the white bird were both third-level creatures, and she raised them very well. The water spirit turtle was even about to break through the late stage of foundation building, but because the area of the cave was limited, the water spirit turtle was not released. Squeak! Soon, a spirit rat that was only the size of a fist and covered with golden hair came out from the ground with its back to her. This is a treasure-hunting rat. As a beast-controlling family, Li Zhirui recognized the identity of this little beast at a glance, and a touch of joy appeared on her face. This was not only because the newcomer was weak, but also because spirit beasts such as treasure-hunting rats were very precious. Although the rank of treasure-hunting rats is not high, only the second rank, they have a magical ability, that is, like their name, they can find treasures. And if they find 99 treasures that are higher than their rank and refine one of them, then their bloodline will be able to break through and evolve step by step. This seems simple, but it is a very difficult thing for the beast treasure-hunting rats to accomplish, because their combat power is almost equal to nothing. What's more, they have to devour a high-level treasure with low-level cultivation. If they are not careful, they will explode and die. Li Zhirui's mind moved, and immediately a water line appeared out of thin air, and appeared behind the treasure-hunting rat in a flash, binding it tightly. Squeak! Squeak! The treasure-hunting rat let out a series of shrill screams, and at the same time, its body kept twisting, as if it wanted to break free from the restraints and escape. But it is a small, only first-level mid-stage spirit beast. Even if Li Zhirui was injured, it is not something it can resist. Just follow me back obediently. I'll give you delicious food and drinks, and maybe you can even be promoted to the third level, Li Zhirui said softly, but she stuffed it directly into the spirit beast bag with both hands. Let the white bird pay attention to the outside world at all times. Li Zhirui took out another elixir to treat the injury. Time passed quickly, and in a blink of an eye, it was several months later. Before the elixir ran out, Li Zhirui's injury was finally cured. It's time to go back. Li Zhirui couldn't wait and left the cave carefully again. After choosing a direction, she turned into a stream of light and ran quickly on the ground. The reason why she chose this method was mainly because she was just a foundation-building cultivator. If she wanted to fly, she could only use magic tools. Once she used magic tools, it was equivalent to telling the demon clan that there was a cultivator here. So for the sake of insurance, even if it was more difficult to run with body skills, she still chose this method. But even if Li Zhirui was very careful, she would still often encounter demon beasts on this land dominated by the demon clan. Fortunately, perhaps because it was close to the border area, the surrounding monsters were not too strong, so it was not difficult for her to deal with them. Although Li Zhirui was already in the late stage of foundation building and had been trained in the outside world for many years, her combat power was just average and not extraordinary. One reason might be that she had no talent for fighting, and the other was that she mainly cultivated water spiritual roots, and the attack strength of water spiritual roots was the weakest among all spiritual roots. Of course, if various magic tools and talismans were added, Li Zhirui's strength was still very strong. It took her several days to leave Taixu State and return to the territory of Shanli Mountain. After entering the territory of the cultivators, she naturally would not use her body skills to hurry on the road. She immediately sacrificed the spirit boat, flew across the sky, and disappeared quickly. When Li Zhirui returned to Banyan Island, it was just dusk. Along the way, she met many tribesmen who were going home for dinner, and they all greeted her enthusiastically. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Breakthrough. You're back. Li Shiking looked up at Li Zhirui, who was just pushing the door open, and asked with a smile, "I'm relieved to see you come back safely." As for whether she had broken through the bottleneck or why she came back so late, he didn't ask. But when Li Zhirui saw Li Shiking's current appearance, she couldn't help but be stunned, and asked with a trembling voice, "Second grandpa, what's wrong with you?" "I'm old, it's like this." "I'm fine." Having said that, a trace of loneliness flashed in his eyes. Li Shiking looked like he had accepted and let it go, but in fact he hadn't. He would still be sad and heartbroken, but he never regretted it. Of course, Li Zhirui didn't believe what he said, but seeing that he didn't want to talk, she didn't continue to ask, and said, "Second grandfather, I went out to practice this time and successfully broke through the bottleneck. After a while, I will prepare to retreat and break through the golden elixir." Okay. Li Zhirui was overjoyed when he heard this, and he cheered again and again, saying, "Wait until tomorrow to call Zhirui and the others, let them be happy too." Li Zhirui was a little embarrassed. She was very confident in herself, but what if she didn't break through for a long time? It would be too embarrassing. "By the way, let me introduce you to your ninth sister-in-law." Huh? Li Zhirui was stunned, and reacted instantly, and said in surprise, "Ninth brother, he got married." "Yes, not long ago." Moreover, Li Zhirui successfully broke through the middle stage of the golden elixir that night, becoming the first and only middle stage of the golden elixir in the Li family. In fact, Li Zhirui didn't expect that he would break through on the spot. He originally thought that on the wedding night, after the double cultivation with Zhang Fengwu, he could seriously experience the joy of love. But who would have thought that when yin and yang met, a powerful magic power erupted, and both of them tried their best to absorb this magic power to strengthen themselves. As a result, Li Zhirui broke through the middle stage of Jiandan, and Zhang Fengwu went one step further, saving several years of hard work. Speaking of which, after the two chatted for a while, Li Zhirui said goodbye. After thinking about it, she didn't rush home, but went to Li Zhirui to find out why Li Zhirui became like this. After she knew the cause of the incident, she fell into silence for a long time, and her mind was unsettled. Work hard to practice, whether you can avenge your second uncle depends on you. There was a hint of bitterness in Li Zhirui's comforting voice. Maybe she really didn't have the chance to become a Jiandan. Over the years, she has tried all kinds of methods, but there is no inspiration or opportunity for a breakthrough. She can only watch the younger generation surpass her. "Auntie Ting, are you going to give up?" Li Zhirui reacted very quickly and said quickly, "You can go out more often, maybe you can encounter a chance to break through." "Yeah," Li Zhirui responded, but this did not ignite the desolation in her heart. She forced a smile and said, "Okay, you just came back, go back and rest quickly." The next day, in the family hall, Li Zhirui saw her ninth sister-in-law Zhang Fengwu. After feeling the other party's cultivation, she was surprised. Thinking about why Li Zhirui was so happy, now she understood everything. Marrying a Jiandan cultivator. How could he not be happy to have an extra Jiandan? This time, Zhirui came back to be able to break through the Jiandan, so the family will draw out a spiritual cave for her to use, Li Zhirui said lightly with his left glove. What? Zhirui is going to break through? It's really a happy event. When the others heard this scene, they immediately whispered to each other, and it seemed particularly lively. "Yes, I will protect you and ensure that you will not be affected by the outside world," Li Zhirui promised with a smile. "By the way, I almost forgot to introduce you. This is my Taoist partner Zhang Fengwu, and this is my sister Li Zhirui." "Hello, sister-in-law," Li Zhirui greeted politely, and then asked, "Am I breaking through in my family? What if it is destroyed by Yuan Mingzong?" "Don't worry, Yuan Mingzong has become yesterday's flower and disappeared with the wind. Now the master of Yunping's Hao is our family." Li Zhirui briefly introduced the situation to her. Afterwards, everyone discussed some other things. Anyway, everyone was almost there, so it didn't matter if they held a meeting directly. One of the most important things is to hold an auction. The reason for doing this is mainly because it can attract cultivators from other places to participate, harvest a lot of spiritual stones, and even take this opportunity to collect some precious spiritual objects. However, this matter cannot be rushed, because the Li family does not have any spiritual objects that can be shown off yet, and they need to accumulate them slowly. When everyone dispersed, Li Zhirui gave Li Zhirui a jade slip and said, "This is my understanding of the dam formation. When you go back, don't rush to break through in seclusion. Comprehend it carefully. Of course, this is just my understanding. I don't think it will work for you. At the same time, don't trust these understandings too much, and don't be affected." "Thank you, brother Jiu, we are all family. There is nothing to thank you for." With that, Li Zhirui took Zhang Fengwu away. The couple is now busy with one thing, that is, to find a skill that Zhang Fengwu is most talented in. As for how to find it, just follow the map, such as learning to make talismans, and see if the improvement of her drawing is large each time. If it is large, it means that her talent is good, and then go in this direction. The reason why Zhang Fengwu chose a skill was that she was persuaded by Li Zhirui, or more accurately, She was deeply attracted by the spirit stones in the skill. Jiang Fengwu, who was born as a casual cultivator, has an obsession with spirit stones, and she herself doesn't want anything, so she lets Li Zhirui pay for it. Among them, alchemy is the fastest way to make money. With Li Zhirui's guidance, Jiang Fengwu is very fond of it and starts to make elixirs with great enthusiasm. Unfortunately, she has no talent in alchemy. She can make a first-level elixir only because of her cultivation in the golden elixir realm, but even so, the quantity and quality of the elixir are not very good. Then there are refining tools, making talismans, and even controlling beasts and planting. They have tried them all, but it's a pity that Jiang Fengwu has no talent in these skills. If you have to say, it may be that she has a better talent for making talismans. If it doesn't work, she can choose to become a talisman maker, first lay a solid foundation for a few years, and then slowly improve. With Li Shiking's guidance, she may become a third-level talisman maker. It's okay, don't we still have the formation? At worst, there are some unpopular skills. Li Zhirui saw Jiang Fengwu's face full of disappointment and immediately comforted her. Am I useless and stupid? I can't learn anything. The experiences of the past few days have hit her hard. Jiang Fengwu, who used to be one of the best among the casual cultivators and was proud, has become a little unconfident. I wish everyone a wonderful March. Chapter 292 Low Profile. No, don't you have a talent for making talismans? Li Zhirui saw that Jiang Fengwu still looked uncomfortable, and immediately changed the subject. Let's go to Uncle Ren to learn how to set up the formation. So far, the one with the highest attainments in the formation of the Li family is Li Zhirui. Maybe he has a good talent in this area, but unfortunately, due to the limitation of his cultivation, he can only be a second-level formation master. What the two did not expect was that Jiang Fengwu, who had no talent in other skills, actually had an extraordinary talent for formations. She had just come into contact with a first-level formation, and it took her only half an hour to learn it. Although there were some small mistakes in the formation technique, she finally succeeded in setting it up. Li Zhirui was dumbfounded when he saw this scene. He never expected that Jiang Fengwu's talent was actually reflected in the most difficult formation. Even Li Zhirui, who was teaching Jiang Fengwu, was stunned. His face was full of surprise, and a complicated expression appeared in his eyes. After a long while, he smiled and said, "It seems that it won't be long before the family will have another third-level formation master. By then, the Li family will have Li Zhirui in alchemy, Li Shiking in talisman making, Li Shilian in planting and raising animals, and Jiang Fengwu, the newly promoted third-level formation master. Then, in addition to the equipment refiner, the Li family will have its own people in several common cultivation skills. Among them, the formation master is more special, because they are needed to arrange the island protection formation of Banyan Island. The current island protection formation of the Li family was arranged by a formation master from Shenlai Mountain. It doesn't look dangerous, but there is still a risk of leaking the formation See, Li Zhirui smiled and said, "I said you must have talent." In fact, he had already given up hope before, and began to think about how to comfort Jiang Fengwu, and at the same time he was still recalling the family, whether there were any other skills to be passed down. Jiang Fengwu was also very happy, because as far as she knew, although the ability of array masters to earn spirit stones was not as good as others, it was not less, especially for high-level array masters, because the number was very scarce, so every time they made a move, the price was very expensive. Uncle Ren, Fengwu is in your hands. Li Zhirui saw that she was smiling foolishly, and didn't know what kind of fantasy she was immersed in, so he didn't bother her and said to Li Zhirui, "Don't worry, since she has such a high talent, I will definitely give her everything I have learned, and I hope she can fulfill my wish." At the end, Li Zhirui's face was lonely and unwilling. He tried to break through the bottleneck many times, and even took risks several times, but no matter what, he couldn't make any progress. So now, Li Zhirui has given up, and now he only wants to pass on the array he has learned. Especially the third-level array that he has spent his life's work on and exists in his conception. He originally thought that in a short period of time, there would be no family members with array talent in the family, or even if there was, he would not be able to see the other party grow up. Because Li Zhirui was already very old. He and Li Shiting were the last two members of the Shi generation, and their lifespan was almost over. But he did not expect that in the last few years of his life, Jiang Fengwu, a genius in formation, would appear. What's more, she was a giant in cultivator, so he didn't need to wait too many years to see the third level formation and the Starlight Mountain and River formation he designed. You guys go back first. In the next few days, let me think about how to teach Feng Wu. Li Zhirui's cloudy and dull eyes once again showed light. Okay, Uncle Ren, take a rest. Li Zhirui pulled Jiang Feng Wu, who was still immersed in fantasy, away. After returning to their cave, Li Zhirui's face became very serious and said, Feng Wu, since you have a high talent in formation, I hope you don't waste this talent, and don't let Uncle Ren down. Seeing her confused, Li Zhirui explained Li Zhirui's matter. In fact, he was helpless. In fact, he had several mature golden mushrooms in his hand. If possible, he would not be unwilling to take the risk to give them to Li Zhirui. But the problem is that Li Zhirui is still blocked by the bottleneck. The golden mushroom that increases the chance of forming a pill is useless to him. So he can only watch this elder who took good care of him grow old. I know, don't worry, I will study hard. Jiang Feng Wu, who was ready to work hard for the Spirit Stone, now has new motivation. A few days later, the two walked into Li Zhirui's cave again, ignoring Li Zhirui's existence, and taught Jiang Feng Wu one-on-one. Starting from the origin of the formation, it slowly extended to various foundations, because he believed that although Jiang Feng Wu was a golden elixir cultivator and had a high talent for formation, the foundation was the most important. So Li Zhirui decided to spend half a year to build an extremely solid foundation for Jiang Feng Wu, and then slowly teach her how to arrange the formation. If possible, he also wanted to teach her how to construct a new formation and how to integrate the formation into the battle. Because Jiang Feng Wu was too tired during the day, the newlyweds did not play around too much and indulged in the joy of love. At the same time, Li Zhirui was not idle either. In addition to daily practice and refining Yuan Qi Dan, he also began to try to deduce and construct the recipe of the third-level Baikyo-Dan from the first-level and second-level Baikyo-Dan. Although the refining of Baikyo-Dan is very difficult and requires a large number of spiritual medicines, it has an advantage that cannot be ignored, that is, it is cheap. Using 99 first-level spiritual medicines and 1 third-level spiritual medicine, you can refine the third-level Baikyo-Dan. Isn't this cheaper than the Yuan Qi Dan that requires several third-level spiritual medicines to refine? Especially for Li Zhirui, who has space, even if he doesn't use spiritual stones to promote birth now, the first-level spiritual medicine only needs to grow for 1 or 2 months to mature. It's a pity that in the fragments of Yao Wan Ganjing, Volume 1 that Li Zhirui got at the beginning, there was only one direction, and there was not even a specific guide. It would take him a lot of time and energy to do it. But now, because he is newly married and has just made a breakthrough, he needs time to consolidate it. In addition, Li Zhirui is in seclusion and needs him to protect her, so he can't go out to practice. He has enough time to do something. What's more, the process of deducing the pill formula is also a kind of practice for him. It can not only polish his mind, but also improve his alchemy skills. Why not do it? As Li Zhirui and others began to concentrate on practicing, the Li family also became quiet and low-key. But no one dared to ignore the Li family because of this. Smart people know that when the Li family walks outside again with a high profile, it will become even more powerful. Chapter 293 Fishy Smell. South of Qingshan State, there is a vast state with an area of more than hundreds of thousands of kilometers, but it is not suitable for mortals to survive. Because it used to be the bridgehead for the water monsters to invade the mainland. In that battle, countless water monsters and monks fell. The violent war that broke out even sank the earth into the sea, so that now only some islands can be seen sporadically. For a long time afterwards, this was the territory of the water monsters. The monks paid a huge price to take it back, and then used magical powers such as land reclamation to turn it into an inland sea, so it was called Kanghae State. However, it can be regarded as a blessing in disguise. Thanks to the Dragon Clan's preference for luxury, there is a 5th-order spiritual vein and several 4th-order spiritual veins on the seabed, so the spiritual energy is rich, coupled with a large number of residual water monsters, and the cultivation civilization is very prosperous. And here is also the place chosen by Li Zhixuan for training. Compared with the monsters in the Qingshan Mountains, the water monsters in the Kanghae are not only more numerous, but also more powerful. Only in this way can she grow up faster. It has been several years since she left Wongsan Island and came to Kanghae's Hao. Although she has not broken through the bottleneck, she has already touched the threshold. If she is lucky, maybe in a few years, she will return to her family to retreat and start trying to break through. Limited by her own qualifications, and the fact that Li Zhirui did not practice the Wanling Sutra and did not have the blessing of the contracted spirit beast, even if she broke through the foundation and got several opportunities, and she worked hard enough, she was still far behind Li Zhirui. Of course, even if she knew about this, Li Zhirui would not care, but would become a driving force to spur her forward. Friend Wang, I heard that a second-level dragon carp appeared near Banyan Island. Let's go and see it together. A handsome man who looked like Pan and suddenly appeared in front of Li Zhirui. Excluding mixed blood and hybrid dragon species, carp is the easiest to transform into dragon among all dragon species. Therefore, even if this dragon carp has only taken the first step, its price can be comparable to that of a third-level spirit beast. I just came back from hunting. Fellow Taoist Yunhe should go find someone else. Li Zhirui, who used the alias Wang Rulan, still had the cold face that kept people away from her. After saying that, she bypassed him and returned to the rented cave. Looking at Li Zhirui's back, Yunhe's eyes flashed with disappointment and loneliness. Since the first time he saw Li Zhirui, he had been interested in her, but that was all. But unexpectedly, by chance, the two joined the same team, and Li Zhirui also saved his life from the mouth of the water monster. The initial interest gradually expanded and eventually turned into love. It's a pity that the flowers have intentions but the water is ruthless. Li Zhirui's heart has never considered love from beginning to end. On Banyan Island, in the Li family's land, Li Zhirui, who is obsessed with deducing the third-level Baikodan, has been in the alchemy room for more than 10 days without coming out. Perhaps it was God's help, or perhaps it was Li Zhirui's good luck. In just a few months, he actually deduced more than half of the first-level spiritual medicines of the third-level Baiko pill. If the 49 first-level spiritual medicines in the second-level pill formula are added, even now, there are only more than 20 first-level spiritual medicines, and the most critical third-level spiritual medicines. However, the further you go, the more difficult it is to deduce. Li Zhirui didn't go out for more than 10 days this time because he caught a little inspiration and discovered a new spiritual medicine. Li Zhirui exhaled a long breath of turbid air. This time it can be said that his brain was drained. He needed to relax to relieve and recover. I don't know how Feng Wu has learned in the past few months, Li Zhirui muttered to himself, took care of his own situation a little, and went straight to Li Zhirui's cave. At the same time, Zhang Fengwu was like a sponge, madly absorbing Li Zhirui's experience and understanding of the formation. Although Zhang Fengwu is still in the stage of laying the foundation, she has lived up to her talent. The growth rate can no longer be described as amazing, but terrifying. Li Zhirui guessed that if Zhang Fengwu were to set up a second-level formation that was not that difficult, there would be a great chance of success. Li Zhirui was very happy about this, because the faster Zhang Fengwu grew, the closer he would be to seeing his masterpiece. When Li Zhirui arrived, the two were still immersed in teaching and learning. He did not disturb them, but watched quietly from the side. Not long after, the two finished today's teaching, and then Zhang Fengwu followed Li Zhirui back home. How is it? Are you used to it? Zhang Fengwu nodded proudly and said, don't you see who I am? How can these basic things be difficult for me? By the way, haven't you been busy these days? Have you solved it now? Li Zhirui shook his head, thought about it, and told Zhang Fengwu part of the truth, saying, have you heard of the Baikodan unique Tao Wang Valley? Zhang Fengwu shook her head in confusion. She was just a casual cultivator before, and was very far away from Tao Wang Valley, so naturally she couldn't have heard of it. Seeing this, Li Zhirui had to introduce the efficacy of the 100 herb pill and its greatest advantages. Did you succeed? Zhang Fengwu's eyes were full of expectations. If she could refine the 100 herb pill, she could improve her realm faster. It's still early. Li Zhirui shook his head. I only know more than 70 kinds of spiritual medicines now, and there are more than 20 left. I don't know how long it will take to succeed. While the two were talking, a simple but delicious spiritual food was ready. This is a new habit that Li Zhirui has developed after getting married. The advantage of doing this is that he can spend more time with Zhang Fengwu. After all, they are both too busy now, and they can communicate more during meals. In the process, both of them learned a little skill and barely became a first-level spiritual chef. Zhang Fengwu, who was picking up a piece of fish with chopsticks and about to put it into his mouth, felt an extremely strong fishy smell coming to his face, and he couldn't control his nausea at all. What's wrong? Did I not handle the spiritual fish well? Is it too fishy? Li Zhirui quickly stood up and looked at her with a worried look on his face. At the same time, he took out some spiritual pills from his stored ring. Ready to use at any time. I'm fine. Zhang Fengwu shook her head and said a little embarrassedly, I just think that the fish smells too fishy. After all, it was Li Zhirui who cooked, so she couldn't say too much. It's okay, I won't eat this spiritual fish. Li Zhirui didn't think much about it and immediately took the spiritual fish away. Well, continue eating, but who would have thought that Zhang Fengwu picked up a piece of chicken this time and also felt that the fishy smell was very strong. Chapter 294 Pregnancy. At this moment, Li Zhirui felt something was wrong, because he had just eaten the chicken and didn't smell anything fishy. An almost impossible possibility suddenly emerged in Li Zhirui's mind, and he looked at Zhang Fengwu who didn't understand in disbelief. What's wrong with me? Seeing that Li Zhirui didn't answer for a long time, Zhang Fengwu asked anxiously. You should be pregnant. Zhang Fengwu was stunned for a moment. In fact, Li Zhirui was not too sure. Her reactions were all his memories of his previous life. Maybe this life would be different? More importantly, both of them were giant cultivators. The probability of pregnancy was much lower than that of other cultivators. Even Li Zhirui had made plans that they might not have offspring, but the two of them got married less than a year ago. Moreover, during this period, Zhang Fengwu was busy learning the formation, and Li Zhirui invested a lot of energy in deducing the recipe for the pill, and the number of times they had sex was not that many. But even under such bad conditions, Zhang Fengwu was pregnant. Let's go ask the medical practitioners trained by the family. The so-called medical practitioners are actually the same as ordinary doctors, except that the former are for treating monks. The Li family has specially trained several people for this kind of unconventional way, which is more important for the development of the family, although the highest cultivation among them is only in the middle stage of foundation building. But whether it is to avoid false joy or to know what to do after pregnancy, medical practitioners are needed to diagnose or help. Okay, the two walked quickly into an antique courtyard. Li Changjing, the medical practitioner with the highest cultivation, did not expect that two big figures would come today. He quickly stood up to greet them and said, Uncle Jiu, Aunt Jiu, are you feeling unwell? Changjing, Aunt Jiu may be pregnant. Please help diagnose her, Li Zhirui said very directly. Li Changjing was shocked. This situation was a bit different from what he had learned before. Isn't it said that the higher the cultivation, the lower the ability to reproduce offspring? How come these two are faster than ordinary foundation building monks? Fortunately, he was only shocked for a moment. When he came to his senses, he apologized to Zhang Fengwu and began to feel his pulse. Soon, Li Changjing retracted his right hand, and said with shock on his face, Aunt Jiu is really pregnant. Ha 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 ha. Li Zhirui couldn't help laughing after getting the correct answer. He originally thought that he would not have any offspring in his life, but he didn't expect the surprise to come so soon. It was not until Zhang Fengwu was so shy that he patted him that Li Zhirui restrained himself a little, but anyone could see how happy he was. He said, Changjing, are there any taboos or dietary restrictions after pregnancy? Please help me write them down. Okay, Li Changjing responded quickly. In fact, they had copied many manuals on maternity care in their hands, but in front of Li Zhirui, of course they had to perform well. Not surprisingly, Li Changjing, and even all the medical practitioners in the clinic, got the second-level elixir made by Li Zhirui himself. The news of Zhang Fengwu's pregnancy was known to almost everyone in the clan in less than half an hour. Even as soon as the two of them walked out of the clinic, Li Shiking and Li Shilian came over. Zhirui, is Fengwu really pregnant? Li Shiking asked with a trembling voice. The reason why he was so excited was that he knew that if nothing unexpected happened, the child of Li Zhirui and Zhang Fengwu would have very good qualifications, even if he had a natural spiritual root. Having a natural spiritual root means that there is no bottleneck before breaking the pill and becoming an infant. The golden elixir that is difficult for others to reach is nothing in their eyes. They can even easily achieve 100 years of forming a pill. Yes, after getting Li Zhirui's affirmative answer, Li Shiking's old face was diluted with joy. You have a good rest. If you need anything, just apply to the family. So, surrounded by the crowd, the two returned to the cave. Zhang Fengwu wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, The clan members are too enthusiastic. What if our child fails to live up to their expectations? His words were full of worry. Although the higher the cultivation level of a cultivator, the better the qualifications of his offspring. This is only generally speaking, not an inevitable result. It's okay, I will find a way to solve it. Zhang Fengwu's worries are not impossible, and Li Zhirui also calmed down and began to think about how to lower the expectations of the clansmen. But before he could come up with a good idea, the beast tide broke out. A large number of water monsters gathered on the east side of Banyan Island, attracting countless cultivators to come and gather in Redwood Market. At first, the Li family did not take this matter to heart. After all, the scale of water monsters has always been like that for so many years, and the family has already had experience in dealing with it. But this time it was different. A large number of second-level water monsters began to appear in the beast tide. A large number of key training cultivators were like collapsing earth and clay dogs in front of them, and were simply vulnerable. Fortunately, the two places were not far apart, and the Li family immediately received the message sent back by the clansmen requesting support. And for the sake of insurance, the Li family also needs to send a giant cultivator to support the battle. After all, the current foundation-building cultivators of the Li family are still relatively precious. It was impossible to let Li Shiking, whose origin was damaged, go on this mission. Li Shilian's combat awareness was not good. If he encountered a more complicated situation, he might be in a panic. Naturally, it fell on Li Zhirui. Be careful. Perhaps because of her pregnancy, Zhang Fengwu's whole body became much softer, and she worriedly warned. Don't worry, they are just some second-level water monsters. I went there just to prevent any accidents. In order not to let her worry too much, Li Zhirui said with a relaxed look. With Li Zhirui's speed, it took only a moment to arrive above the east side of Banyan Island, and look down at the beast tide below with a somewhat unpleasant face. Because there were too many water monsters in this beast tide, at a glance, it seemed as if the entire vast sea was dyed black. Could this year be the so-called Big Beast Tide? Legend has it that every 10 or 20 years, a beast tide will erupt among water monsters. This is not only to use the hands of the human race to clean up the huge number of low-level water monsters, but also a test for the water monsters. But in this way, the number of second-level and third-level water monsters will continue to increase, so the so-called Big Beast Tide came into being. Li Zhirui looked at the sea with a gloomy face. These second-level water monsters were just vanguard cannon fodder. It would not be long before third-level water monsters appeared. If there were only 1 or 2 third-level water monsters, he might be able to deal with them. But the problem was that there were definitely more than just a few water monsters. However, given the current situation of the Li family, they could not deal with too many third-level water monsters. Chapter 295 Risk. Li Zhirui stood in the air for a long time, and finally couldn't think of a solution. He sighed helplessly and used a communication talisman to inform Li Shiking and others to bring people to support as soon as possible. Is the situation so dangerous? Li Shiking looked serious and immediately notified most of the monks and the family to pack up and prepare to go to the island chain in the east to resist the beast tide. Second brother, do you want to notify Fengwu? Li Shilian asked hesitantly. Zhang Fengwu is a giant monk, and he broke through from the demon hunting team. His combat power is not comparable to Li Zhirui, but at least he is stronger than the two of them. With her joining, they will definitely be a lot easier. But now she is pregnant. Even the fetus in her belly has not yet formed. The battlefield changes rapidly. What if something unexpected happens? After all, this is very likely to be the first and last child of Li Zhirui and Zhang Fengwu. Li Shiking was also worried about this, but for the sake of safety, he finally let Zhang Fengwu stay in the clan land and let her control the island protection formation to protect the clan members in the clan land. Although the situation was urgent, thanks to the fact that the Li family had sufficient reserves of various materials and was used to placing them in different categories, when Li Shiking and his party set out, they also brought a lot of materials. The personnel who went to the island chain for support included Li Shiking, Li Shilian, and Decking, 3 Jinden, and below them were Li Shiren, Li Shiting and other foundation-building combat forces. It can be said that in order to resist this great beast tide, the Li family almost took out 70% of their own strength. Roar! Suddenly, a thunderous roar reached the ears of everyone who had just set off. Zhang Fengwu's face turned pale, worried about Li Zhirui's safety, but she couldn't rush over to fight alongside him. because that would distract Li Zhirui and put him in danger. Li Shiking and the others looked even more serious and solemn. They immediately increased the speed of the spirit ship to the fastest. A spiritual light pierced through the sky and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Li Zhirui was watching 5 third-level water monsters coming out from the bottom of the sea. The earth-shattering roar was made by one of the third-level water monsters. And this one was an old friend of Li Zhirui. When Daking was undergoing the tribulation, he wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to devour Daking's unicorn whale. It was because he saw Li Zhirui in the sky that he let out an angry roar. "Lanjiao, do you have a grudge against this human cultivator?" A water monster next to him said with a smile. "Do you want us to help you get revenge?" "Humph," the unicorn whale snorted coldly, and the seawater around it actually raised a small wave, saying, "I will help him solve it myself. You just watch from the side and don't interfere, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." The other water monsters didn't care about it at all, and even enjoyed it, so that they could relax a lot. "It's you." Li Zhirui also recognized the other party, and his heart became more solemn. When they first met, the other party had the strength of the third stage late stage, and now it would definitely be even more terrifying. The defeated general at that time actually dared to appear in front of me. Wow, several water monsters on the side were shocked when they heard this. They didn't expect that the powerful unicorn whale would be defeated by the human race, and the other party was only in the middle stage of the golden elixir. "You are looking for death?" Seeing that Li Zhirui had exposed himself in front of everyone, the unicorn whale suddenly became furious, lost his rationality as a third stage monster, and roared towards him. Although the unicorn whale is huge, its speed in the water is not slow. In just a few breaths, he came under Li Zhirui, opened his bloody mouth, and burst out a terrible whale-swallowing force. Under this force, the surrounding seawater was drawn into it and swallowed into his stomach. His stomach was like a bottomless pit that could never be filled. Unfortunately, Li Zhirui saw that the situation was not good and had already escaped. No matter how powerful his attack was, it would be useless if he could not hit anyone. "You only have this much strength? Let me show you my tricks." A trace of cruelty flashed in Li Zhirui's eyes. He threw dozens of poisonous seeds with a flick of his hand, and then, under the stimulation of his large amount of mana, a large number of black vines grew in the seawater in the blink of an eye. Even if the last essence of venom was not used, the toxins emitted by the stems and leaves alone were very terrifying, enough to poison a group of low-level water monsters. "These vines are poisonous." The other 4 third-level water monsters retreated to the rear at the fastest speed. But as soon as they retreated, Li Shiking and others arrived. A total of 3 giant in combat forces need to deal with 4 third-level water monsters. This is really not a small difficulty. "Second Grandpa, you just try to delay. Don't fight them. Wait until I solve this big whale. I will help you." Li Zhirui did not transmit the sound, but shouted loudly with confidence. HMPH, hearing this, the unicorn whale no longer hid his methods and said with a grim smile, "Let me show you my true strength." Puff. Before he could explode, a poisonous vine hidden in the sea pierced into his body, which made him lose his temper. "Impossible. This is impossible. How could a mere first-level vine be faster than my consciousness? Pierce my body." This blow dealt him a heavy blow, and he became completely lost. As for the poisonous vine, although the toxin was overbearing and could kill a giant and cultivator, looking at the huge size of the unicorn whale, the poison of a mere vine would not have much effect. Li Zhirui originally wanted to seize the moment when the other party lost consciousness, injure him with his most powerful attack, and then slowly expand his advantage, but he did not expect that the power of the vine was so great. However, this also gave him a better opportunity. Li Zhirui mobilized all his mana and injected it into Qianling. The white cloud, which was only half an acre in size, expanded rapidly and exploded to more than 10 acres in size. The purple-veined green bamboo growing on it turned into towering bamboo, as if there were endless bamboo leaves attached to it. These bamboo leaves fell off one after another, flashing with purple lightning, like a green sword that swallowed and spit out sword energy, whistling towards the narwhal. The bamboo leaves formed a sword energy tornado that wrapped the giant whale, and hundreds of bamboo leaves crossed his body every moment. Roar. As the roar filled with pain and anger sounded, the surrounding seawater quickly became turbulent, and one after another, the endless waves wanted to break the sword energy tornado and save the giant whale. Relying on its own majestic magic power, the huge waves finally broke the sword energy, and the giant whale was able to escape, but the originally dark blue skin now had wounds with blood and flesh turned outward, which looked very hideous and terrifying. Chapter 296 Proposal. Facing the enraged whale, Li Zhirui, whose mana had only recovered 30%, was not worried, but instead showed a strange smile on his face. The whale was about to move the mana, but was interrupted by a sharp pain that penetrated deep into the bone marrow. The poisonous vines that Li Zhirui had previously spawned had inadvertently spread the poison all over the nearby sea area, and entered the body through its wounds. With a transfer of mana, it has now spread to every corner of the body. The pain drove the whale crazy, and it actually planned to continue fighting with Li Zhirui desperately, with no intention of retreating at all. Not good. The 4 water monsters nearby saw this scene and their expressions changed drastically. 2 of them immediately got rid of the entanglement of Li Zhirui and others, and rushed towards the giant whale while shouting, "Lanjiao, wake up!" Another one threatened, "The unicorn giant whale clan is rare, and Lanjiao is the offspring of a 4th level monster. If you dare to kill it, just wait for the unicorn giant whale clan to destroy this island." The 4 of them were not as good as Lanjiao in origin. The main purpose of participating in the beast tide this time was to protect the other party, not to kill the monks. Li Zhirui's face was very ugly, but due to the threat of the other party, he did not dare to do it again. You know, the unicorn giant whale is a 5th grade monster, but let alone the 5th grade, as long as a 4th grade monster comes, the Li family will have no power to fight back. The 2 water monsters saw Li Zhirui stop, and they were relieved. If Lanjiao died here, they would return to the clan, and even if they didn't die, they would be tortured. Now that Lanjiao was seriously injured, they had no intention of staying any longer. The 4 of them took it into the deep sea without hesitation, not caring about the low-level water monsters who were still fighting with the monks. In their eyes, these low-level water monsters were just cannon fodder to die. "Zhirui, now that we have offended the unicorn giant whale clan, what should we do?" Li Zhilian asked worriedly. "Don't worry, they dare not send out high-level water monsters." Li Zhirui was much calmer. "This world is dominated by the human race, and other races can only live in a corner and survive. Among them, the situation of water monsters is better, occupying the vast outer sea. But in the offshore area, 3rd-level water monsters are extremely rare. Do they not want to occupy such a large sea area? No, it is because of the strength of the human race that they are forced to retreat to the outer sea. At the same time, the human race also restricts high-level water monsters from entering the inner sea. You can come in, but once you come in, don't think about leaving." That's why Li Zhirui was so confident. After all, he only injured the person severely, but he didn't die. Even if he died, it's not certain that his elders would avenge him. The reason why Li Zhirui didn't do it was that he was worried that the 4 3rd-level water monsters would go crazy and injure Li Zhirui and others. "Don't think so much now, let's get through this beast tide first," Li Zhirui said a little weakly. In fact, after the 3rd-level water monster that drove the beast tide escaped, this beast tide could be declared over. Because without their control, the low-level water monsters would gradually regain their sanity and fear death again. With the help of Li Zhirui and others, the beast tide soon ended, leaving only corpses and devastated islands. The original Long Island chain was sunk several times in this big beast tide. We have to find a way to make it up in the future, otherwise the next time the beast tide breaks out, the water monsters can pass through here and directly attack Wongsan Island. Although the beast tide did not last long, it was extremely tragic, and a large number of monks died. According to preliminary statistics, the number of casualties in the Li family reached 200, including 4 foundation-building cultivators and dozens of late-stage key training clan members. This was a big loss for the Li family. The casualties of the independent cultivators and those small forces were even more severe, with at least thousands of cultivators dead, not to mention the number of casualties. As for the harvest, it was the tens of thousands of water monster corpses. The flesh could be used for food, and some spiritual materials could be harvested. After returning to the clan, several people urgently convened a family meeting, mainly to discuss what kind of troubles the giant whale clan would bring. High-level monsters are restricted by the rules of the human race and dare not easily step into the offshore area, but the unicorn giant whale clan has a good influence among the water monsters, Li Zhirui said in a deep voice. They may not dare to do it themselves, but they can control and drive away low-level water monsters, thereby launching a beast tide against the family. Of course, Lanjiao's status should not be that high. After all, he is only the offspring of a 4th-level monster. Even if he sets off a beast tide, the number of times should not be too many. It may be over after 1 or 2 times. But even so, the family's loss is still too great, and it will seriously restrict the family's development, an elder said helplessly. Li Chengmo, who had been thinking with his head down, suddenly spoke up and said, "We can ask for help from outside. Who will come to help in this situation, especially since the Li family has developed too fast? There is no force that has made friends with it. Like many immortal cultivation families, there are marriage families, but because the Li family does not have a suitable candidate, or if there is, it is either like Li Zhirui, who has no feelings for the other party, or like Li Zhirui, who has the hope of golden elixir and is reluctant to marry out." Chengmo, continue. Li Zhirui seemed to be thinking about something and motioned him to continue. The family now occupies Banyan Island, Yunping's Hao, and Guangqing's Hao, but because of the family's strength, the spiritual veins in many places have not been better utilized. Li Chengmo paused and said, "You can use these spiritual veins to attract cultivators who want to establish a family or sect to come and help. As long as they kill enough water monsters, they can choose a 1st-level spiritual vein and become a vassal of the family from then on." As soon as the voice fell, an elder stood up and said angrily, "No. I don't agree. The spiritual veins are so precious, how can we give them up so easily?" "That's right. Although these spiritual veins are not used now, as the family grows, they will be fully developed one day." Other elders also spoke up, some angry, some gentle. But in short, they disagreed with Li Chengmo's proposal. But Li Chengmo looked calm, because he knew that the final decision was made by Li Zhirui and several Jindan, or in other words, as Li Shiqing and Li Shilian gradually stopped speaking, the decision-making power had fallen into the hands of Li Zhirui alone. And if he had seen it correctly, Li Zhirui should have agreed to his proposal. "Just do as Chengmo said." Li Zhirui's voice was very light, but it instantly quieted the hall. Especially those elders who objected loudly, now they held their breath and felt very uncomfortable. Chapter 297 Resurrection. Brother 9 Uncle 9, facing Li Zhirui, the Jindan elder, the elder's momentum suddenly weakened. "With the current strength of the Li family, it can't be stopped," Li Zhirui said helplessly. "Doesn't he know the importance of spiritual veins? But the water monster is coming fiercely. Without the help of outsiders, can the tribesmen be sent to die? In this beast tide alone, more than 200 tribesmen died. How many will there be next time? You know, the Li family has developed very quickly. Not only has it vigorously promoted more births and more breeding, but it has also absorbed a large number of non-family members with spiritual roots and tried every means to integrate them into the family. After decades, the effect is remarkable, but the base number at the beginning is too small. So far, the Li family has only 1 or 2,000 cultivators. If the Li family is given another 100 years to develop, even without such a long time, Li Zhirui would not make the current choice. He is confident that the Li family at that time can easily survive this disaster. But the problem is that it is too late now. The elders did not expect that Li Zhirui, the pillar of the family, would say this. Their expressions suddenly became dim and they kept quiet. "Chengmo, this matter will be left to you to organize, and then spread it out as soon as possible so that a large number of cultivators will know about it." Li Zhirui sighed in his heart and urged. "Yes." Turning around and seeing Li Shiqing's tired face, Li Zhirui could not hide his worry and said, "Second grandfather, you should go back and rest." His current body was simply unable to fight violently. If it lasted a little longer, he would feel uncomfortable and tired. In the previous battle, he gritted his teeth and endured it. "Thank you for your hard work." Li Shiqing did not refuse, because he knew that he would need to take action next, and now he had to rest up. After Li Zhirui and Li Shilian sent him back, they returned to their own cave. "Are you okay? Are you not injured?" Zhang Fengwu, who heard the noise, hurried out of the room, his eyes full of worry and anxiety. Li Zhirui hurriedly stepped forward, hugged her gently, and said softly, "Isn't it good for me? Don't you know my strength? Don't worry, but I heard that this beast tide is particularly dangerous." Zhang Fengwu paused and said, "Why don't you let me replace the second grandfather and let him stay in the clan land?" "He won't agree. Just stay at home peacefully, take care of yourself and the clan members, and don't think too much," and Li Zhirui himself didn't want her to take risks. Seeing that Zhang Fengwu wanted to say something, Li Zhirui said first, "If you feel embarrassed, make more array plates. When the time comes, you can use the array to deal with the water monster, which will also make the clan members feel more relaxed and safe. Not only Zhang Fengwu, all the clan members who can make alchemy, make talismans, arrays and other skills in the family, in the following days, except for resting, all other time is devoted to it, preparing for the war soon. A few days later, Yunping's Hao, Guangqing's Hao, and nearby King Shan's Hao and others were all spreading that the Li family wanted to rank the number of water monsters killed in the beast tide. Those who rank higher can choose a spiritual vein in Yunping's Hao or Guangqing's Hao. You can build your own power or transfer it to others. What do you think? Is this true or false? Can the Li family be so generous? It should be true, right? After all, this is what the Li family said. If it is false in the end, they will lose all face, as expected of a Jinden family. They are so willing to give away spiritual veins. Countless cultivators talked about this. Although most of them were tempted, they knew their own strength, so they just talked about it. Of course, there are also some cultivators who are not going for the spiritual veins, but want to take this opportunity to kill more water monsters and earn spiritual stones. And some cultivators have already established their own strength, but because they have no spiritual veins to gain a foothold, they can only mix in the market, or even in the mortal world. There is no way to grow. Now when they heard that the Li family was going to distribute spiritual veins, they quickly took action, asking around for information, collecting spiritual objects, and after the news was confirmed, they began to rush to Banyan Island. The reaction of the narwhals was similar to what Li Zhirui had guessed. Although Lanjiao was seriously injured, other giant whales were not too angry except for his parents. When his parents wanted to summon water monsters for revenge again, they only expressed their support verbally, and would not really help. After all, this kind of thing requires a certain price. For example, if you want to privately summon water monsters of a certain race to launch a beast tide, you need to find a high-level water monster and then spend money to buy their lives in this battle. Once the beast tide is over, whether you win or lose, their lives have nothing to do with you. In the next few months, Lanjiao's parents took care of him while summoning water monsters, preparing to entangle a large group of water monsters to avenge their son. A few months later, 2 4th-level monsters came to the border area of the sea, took out the summoning spirit tools of each water monster race, and then activated them. Because this was a private action, not an order issued by a high-level water monster to relieve the pressure in the sea, it was so complicated and required different summoning tools. If it were a natural beast tide, only one magic weapon would be needed to summon all the water monsters within a radius of dozens of miles. Buzz, waves of voices that could not be concealed by words rang out in the sea. It was unknown how far they were transmitted, but after hearing the sound, a large number of low-level water monsters rushed towards their location as if they were possessed. After waiting for about an hour or two, tens of thousands of low-level water monsters were finally aroused, including 4 3rd-level water monsters. These 4 3rd-level water monsters were vassals of their small family and the main force of this operation. The 4th-level big monster was not unaware of Li Zhirui's ferocity, but there was nothing they could do. Their small family had not cultivated many vassals before, and there were no extra 3rd-level monsters. So it had already given orders this time. They mainly focused on defense and entangled with Li Zhirui and others, allowing a large number of low-level water monsters to break through the defense line and directly attack Banyan Island. Roar, kill them, with its order, countless water monsters rushed towards the monks like crazy. Here they come. Li Zhirui, who had moved here when the island chain was rebuilt, had always been paying attention to the situation in the sea. So when the beast tide appeared, he quickly discovered it. The water monster is coming. Everyone get ready and hunt the water monster. Li Zhirui's murderous voice reached the ears of all the cultivators. After the water monster enters 100 steps, activate the Zuanbing talisman to freeze a large number of water monsters directly, and then take this opportunity to kill as many water monsters as possible to reduce the pressure of the beast tide. Thank you for your support. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Support. At the same time, Li Shiking and others in the clan land also received the news as soon as possible, and immediately took the clan members and spiritual objects to the battlefield. Li Zhirui looked at the beast tide not far away, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, because the scale was smaller than he imagined. If the Li family alone, it would definitely not be able to cope with it, but if the monks who came for the spirit veins or wanted to earn spirit stones were added, this beast tide would not be so terrible. Now the only thing that worries him is how many third-level water monsters the other party will send. If there are only 5 or 6, they can deal with it at a certain price. If there are more, the Li family will be in danger. Li Zhirui looked back with a serious look, waiting for the third-level water monster to appear. Soon, 4 water monsters of different races and sizes surfaced from the sea. They were all water monsters with ordinary bloodlines, and the strongest ones were only in the middle stage of the 3rd level, with a total of 2. Only 4 third-level water monsters. Li Zhirui's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. It seems that the status of the blue horn is not as high as he imagined. Or are there other third-level water monsters hiding in the dark? In fact, what he didn't know was that although the unicorn whale clan was small in number, they were all big eaters. They didn't have enough to eat, so how could they have extra spiritual creatures to cultivate their followers? Therefore, these 4 third-level water monsters were already the strongest lineup that Lan Jiao and his small clan could send out. Li Zhirui's spiritual sense went back and forth in the beast tide for several times, but he didn't find the breath of the 5th third-level water monster. He was determined in his heart. At the same time, he changed his previous plan and decided that after the 2 sides fought, he would burst out with all his strength, kill or seriously injure a water monster first, relieve the pressure of Li Shiking and others, and then do the same one by one. Roar! While Li Zhirui was thinking, the beast tide had already approached the island chain. He only heard tens of thousands of water monsters roaring in unison, and the momentum was so great that the clouds dissipated and the waves rose one after another. For the spirit veins. For the spirit stones. Kill. The monks did not need Li Zhirui to preside over the battle. For their own purposes, they attacked without hesitation as soon as the water monsters entered the attack range. In order to kill more water monsters, many of them did not follow Li Zhirui's previous instructions. Fortunately, the Li family members all obeyed obediently. One by one, the black ice talismans were activated, and a white mist rose over the sea. Wherever they passed, they all turned into hard black ice, which could not only block the water monsters from moving forward, but also freeze some of them, making them easily killed by the monks. The 4 third-level water monsters rushed towards Li Zhirui, trying to kill him first. But Li Zhirui had already prepared for it. The moment they moved, a heavy spiritual light shone on his body. At the same time, Qianling appeared out of thin air, stretching out thick roots, swinging them without any rules, not giving them a chance to get close. The demons who had known about Li Zhirui's strength through the mouths of the third-level water demons before felt depressed. They knew that if they failed to kill him before the other party's support arrived, they would have no chance. The 4 demons looked at each other, and they showed their true forms of water demons, and used their most powerful magic on Li Zhirui. Li Zhirui's expression changed slightly, and he took back Qianling with a thought, and then turned into a breeze, trying to escape from their siege. Don't even think about leaving. In order to kill him with one blow, the 4 demons had already made various preparations. When they saw him use the escape method, they immediately summoned a large amount of seawater to turn into a prison and besieged the surroundings. It seems that we really have to fight, Li Zhirui had to show his figure and said in a low voice. But there was no panic, as if everything was under his control. Instead, the 4 water demons became panicked, fearing that they would fall into the trap with Li Zhirui as bait. Daking, I'll have to work hard for you next. Daking, who had been hiding in the space, responded and agreed with a firm expression. You are also a water demon. Why do you help human cultivators? Betray us. One of the water demons tried to alienate the 2. Daking was calm when he heard this. He had lived with Li Zhirui and the Li family since he was born. Although he was born in the demon clan, he never considered himself a demon clan, so how could he betray? His hands moved without any pause, and he cast endless defensive spells one by one, and then used the remaining mana to cast the magical power of turning thousands of trees into mountains. Finally, while recovering his mana, he sacrificed his newly refined life magic weapon, the defensive magic weapon Muho Turtle Shield, which was mainly made of all the tortoise shells he had shed, and combined with the many precious spiritual materials. Li Zhirui concentrated on using the water and wood divine light. Because he was in the sea, the water divine light was even more powerful. A giant dragon with a dark blue body and exuding dragon power was entrenched in this space. The lifelike dragon eyes were full of disdain and impatience. The attacks of both sides collided with each other, and they kept wearing each other out. However, compared with the attacks of the four monsters, the blue dragon was obviously no match. In just a moment, it was mostly worn out. Unfortunately, Li Zhirui had no idea of resisting at all. He immediately urged the giant dragon to self-destruct. The terrifying impact force spread in all directions, and the defense displayed by Daking was shattered crazily. Fortunately, the prison that trapped Li Zhirui was also broken, and he pulled Daking away without hesitation, escaping from the encirclement of the four monsters. The human race is really cunning. Because of the untimely reaction, the four monsters were a little embarrassed by the explosion. When they came to their senses, they saw Li Zhirui standing in the distance, safe and sound, and were very angry. More importantly, the support of Li Zhirui and others came. With the arrival of hundreds of tribesmen, and with the advantage of the terrain, they quickly gained the upper hand and suppressed the beast tide to prevent them from moving forward. On the battlefield of the giant and cultivators, it was no longer just Li Zhirui and Daking fighting for. The arrival of Li Zhirui and Li Zhilian relieved them of a lot of pressure. The faces of the four third-level water monsters became very ugly and full of bitterness, because they knew clearly that this time the beast tide had already lost. The four of them couldn't take down Li Zhirui together, and now there were two more giant and cultivators. It was even more impossible for them to do it. If they could, they didn't want to continue fighting, not to mention that it was meaningless. They might get injured or even die. But there was a fourth-level monster behind them. There was no way they could escape without a fight. Even if they escaped alive in the end, they would not have a good ending. What they could do now was to behave as well as possible so that the fourth-level monster would slightly reduce the punishment on them. For this reason, the four demons looked at each other, and saw the helplessness and determination in each other's eyes. They immediately mobilized their magic power, found an opponent and rushed up. Chapter 299 Death. Come on, Li Zhirui was just worried that he had no chance to teach them a lesson. Now that he saw the water monster rushing up, he certainly wouldn't miss this opportunity. Qianling jumped to the top of his head, the spiritual cloud expanded, the spiritual bamboo swayed in the wind, and bamboo leaves filled with sword energy shot out, not giving the other party a chance to get close. Li Zhirui shook his right hand, and a rope made of water and wood divine light emerged, and tied up the water monster. Roar! The other party sensed the danger, stopped immediately, and retreated violently to the back, while freezing the seawater and transforming it into various weapons, trying to block the divine light. Li Zhirui took advantage of the situation and rushed up with a spiritual sword in his hand. The sword light split into countless and turned into a large net, with divine light blessing it, gathering from all directions to the middle, ready to directly bind the water monster. Unexpectedly, the water monster saw that the situation was not good, and directly fled into the sea, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Ha! Li Zhirui chuckled disdainfully, then turned around to help Li Zhirui who was barely resisting. Wang Lin, that bastard! The water monster saw Li Zhirui rushing over and cursed with an ugly face, but his movements were not slow. He sank directly to the bottom of the sea like the previous water monster. As for the remaining two water monsters, seeing that the situation was over, they dared not stay for a moment, and fought hard to repel Li Zhilian and Daking, and soon disappeared. When they all disappeared, at the junction of the near sea and the open sea, there were two huge whales with extremely large bodies. They raised their tails high and smashed the sea surface angrily, which immediately set off a huge wave hundreds of feet high, whistling towards the near sea. Unfortunately, they were still too far away from Banyan Island. When the huge wave arrived, there was only a wave less than 2 feet high, but with a trace of terrifying demonic aura, which did not pose any threat at all. Li Zhirui and others who saw this scene, because they had repelled the third-level water monster and the beast tide was about to end, and their minds were relaxed, they became tense again. They knew that this was a warning from the fourth-level monster, which also meant that this matter might not be over yet. However, Li Zhirui was not too worried, because it was not difficult to see from this beast tide that the unicorn whale clan would not participate in it. Only Lanjiao's parents, a small family, would take action. And a family that can only produce 4 third-level water monsters, or even no third-level late-stage water monsters, is not that threatening to the Li family, unless they dare to cross the border and attack the Li family personally. Huh? Li Zhirui, who had been holding on before, exhaled heavily after confirming that the water monsters had indeed escaped, and his body shook a little. If it weren't for Deking's quick hands and eyes, he would probably have fallen directly into the sea. His situation was far from showing that he was so good, mainly because he had consumed too much mana when fighting against the 4 water monsters before. So Li Zhirui was so radical later, not like his previous style at all, in order to prevent the other party from discovering his true situation. "Are you okay?" Li Shiking asked worriedly. Li Zhirui replied weakly, "It's okay, it's just a little exhausting, I just need to recover. Second grandfather, if you still have some energy left, go help a bunch of tribesmen, just let Deking stay by my side." Although they prepared a lot of spiritual objects, a large number of talismans, and arrays arranged near the island chain for this war, there are always accidents on the battlefield, and I'm afraid some tribesmen will be injured or even die. Why Deking? Because he has participated in 2 wars and his mana is running out. As for Li Zhirui's other contracted spirit beast Zhaoking, he entered a critical period of breakthrough some time ago, and is now working hard in the tribe to break through as soon as possible. In other words, Li Zhirui is a 3rd-level alchemist, so he doesn't have to worry about insufficient resources. Other tribesmen simply don't have the financial resources to support 2 spirit beasts, let alone train them to the 3rd level. You should have a good rest, and we will take care of these things. After Li Shiking finished speaking, he flew over the beast tied with Li Shilian and began to deal with these low-level water monsters. With the strength of the giant and monks, these water monsters are all collapsed and vulnerable, and they can easily kill a large number of them. Not long after, the beast tide collapsed, and a large number of low-level water monsters began to flee everywhere, attracting monks to go out to sea to hunt water monsters. When counting the casualties after the war, the situation of the Li family made Li Zhirui and others feel relieved. There were still casualties, but the number was not large, only dozens of people. But there was a person with a high status in the family who was seriously injured because of a moment of carelessness. She was Li Shiting. Li Shiting, who is already old, looked even older after being injured this time, and it seemed that her lifespan was not much. However, Li Shiting behaved very freely. Facing the worried eyes of Li Shiking and Li Shilian, she had a smile on her face and said, "It's enough to live for so many years. Although I haven't broken through the Jinden, I have cultivated Zhirui anyway. She can fulfill my wish." "Shiting, don't say such depressing words," Li Shilian said reluctantly. Li Changjing, the best medical practitioner in the family, hurried over with other medical practitioners, but when he saw Li Shiting for the first time, he secretly said that it was not good. Li Shiting, who was already old and physically fragile, was injured in the internal organs, and she was determined to die, so her vitality was rapidly fading. In the end, Li Changjing and others tried every means, but still failed to save Li Shiting, and she fell on the sea. After Li Zhirui recovered some of his mana, he heard the bad news for the first time, and he was stunned. He never expected that Tingu would die in this war. Li Shiren may have felt the same way, because from then on, he was the only one in the clan with a character she. The whole person became more and more corrupt, and Li Zhirui even suspected that if it weren't for Jiang Fengwu to learn the formation, he might not have the faith to live. What everyone didn't expect was that at the moment when Li Shiting died, Li Zhirui, who was in retreat in the spirit cave, seemed to have a sense. The door of the golden elixir that had never been opened before was opened by her at this moment. She was like a plant in the desert, madly absorbing the insights from it to build an excellent foundation for herself. The spiritual energy from the outside world, because of Li Zhirui's intake and exhalation, formed a small tornado, attracting the attention of all the tribesmen in the tribe, including Jiang Fengwu. This is, Jiang Fengwu, who had the same experience, looked at this scene with some surprise. If she remembered correctly, the person who was breaking through now was Li Zhirui. "I don't know what the situation is like in the war." Jiang Fengwu was a little worried that she alone might not be able to do a good job of protecting the law. But because she didn't understand the situation on the battlefield, she didn't dare to use the communication talisman, for fear that in a critical moment, this communication talisman would put Li Zhirui in danger. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 300 Polishing. After thinking for a while, Jiang Fengwu called his elder brother Li Zhihan and said, "Brother, Zhirui is now in the process of forming a pill. I'm afraid she will start to transcend the tribulation soon. But the current situation is not convenient to use the communication talisman. I can only trouble you to go to the battlefield and tell Zhirui and the others about this matter." "Okay, I'll go now," Li Zhihan agreed without hesitation and said, "Before that, Thank you for your hard work, brother and sister-in-law." After that, Li Zhirui hurriedly left the clan land and drove the flying magic weapon to the battlefield. Because it was only a few hundred miles away, and he used his fastest speed, it only took Li Zhirui a quarter of an hour to arrive at the battlefield. "Is it over?" Looking at the people below who began to collect the corpses, Li Zhirui was surprised at the speed, and his heart, which had been hanging, finally relaxed. "Brother, why are you here?" Li Zhirui, who had recovered a lot of magic power not far away, was sitting above the battlefield to prevent the cultivators from fighting for the spiritual objects. As for the two elders Li Shiking, they were naturally resting in the back and counting the damage within the family. After a rough count, a total of 57 people from the Li family died. There were quite a few injured, but it was not a big problem. They just needed to recuperate for a while after returning. In addition, there were the consumption of talismans, elixirs, and other spiritual objects. The figures in this regard were quite huge, but they were all dead objects and could be earned back in the future. At the same time, the points of those who were ready to exchange for spiritual veins and establish forces had to be calculated, and the top 12 of them were listed. Then, according to the ranking, they could choose their own spiritual veins. Although the spiritual veins from the Li family were all first-level spiritual veins, there were many tricks in it. For example, some spiritual veins produced more spiritual energy, some spiritual veins merged with water eyes to produce spiritual water, and some naturally open up spiritual caves. The list provided by the Li family will list the advantages and disadvantages of the spiritual veins in more detail. As for how to choose, it depends on their own preferences. Speaking of which, Zhirui is now forming a pill, and it won't be long before she starts to overcome the tribulation. My sister-in-law is pregnant, and she is worried that something unexpected will happen. She can't do it with all her strength, so she asked me to come and check on the situation. What? Li Zhirui was overjoyed. He didn't expect Li Zhirui to start a breakthrough at this time. In this way, the strength of the Li family has been greatly improved. Even her breakthrough alone can completely make up for the deaths of those clansmen, and even more than weaken the strength of the Li family. I'll go back now. Li Zhirui was also worried about accidents, so he immediately said, "Brother, please tell this matter to the second grandfather and others, and ask them to supervise the battlefield to avoid causing trouble." "Don't worry," Li Zhirui nodded. He used to be the clan leader, so he would be more handy than Li Zhirui in handling this matter. Li Zhirui did not delay any longer, and immediately turned into a wisp of breeze and flew towards the clan land at his fastest speed. In just half a minute, he returned to the clan land and saw Zhang Fengwu, who was walking back and forth near Li Zhirui's retreat spirit cave, looking a little anxious. "Fengwu, I'm back. Leave the next thing to me. You go back and rest first." Zhang Fengwu turned around in a hurry. Seeing that Li Zhirui was unharmed, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Then I'll leave this to you. She is pregnant now, and it is the most dangerous first 3 months. She can't worry too much." Before Li Zhirui came back, Zhang Fengwu dispersed the nearby tribesmen and prevented them from getting close, so as not to let the thunder tribulation absorb their breath and cause the disaster to intensify. As soon as the two of them handed over, the sky darkened a lot, dark clouds gathered, thunder rolled, and bursts of roars spread all over the place. Not long after, Li Zhirui came out of the spirit cave. Li Zhirui saw that she was in good condition and felt a little relieved. And she also saw Li Zhirui and showed him a bright smile. Obviously, she was very confident about her disaster this time. Soon, a thunder tribulation hid her head, and the ferocious silver dragon roared wildly, and the terrifying breath was dawning. But under Li Zhirui's meticulous spells, the thunder was constantly weakened. Although the speed was a little slow, it was very safe, especially because it consumed less of her own energy. "It seems that Zhirui's tribulation is fine," Li Zhirui said softly. "In fact, for cultivators who rely on forces, it is not as dangerous as it seems to be for outsiders to cross the golden elixir tribulation, because the various ways in it are explained in detail by the master. Just like the Li family, even if only Li Zhirui and other 3 people have golden elixir, the experience of crossing the tribulation they left behind can also improve the success rate of all the clansmen's tribulation, not to mention those big forces. But why are golden elixir cultivators still relatively rare? The main reason is that many foundation-building cultivators, like Li Zhirui and Li Zhiding, can never grasp the true nature of the golden elixir, which is the so-called foundation of the Great Way. Without a foundation, everything is like flowers in the water and the moon in the mirror. How can you continue to move forward? Li Zhirui's tribulation speed is very slow. It took her 2 or 3 hours to cross 3 tribulation thunders, but the advantage is that the process is very smooth and there are no accidents. Now only the last calamity of the inner demon remains. Li Zhirui was a little worried. Although Li Zhirui's character had improved a lot over the years, he didn't know her specific situation because he had less contact with her. At this time, Li Zhirui was trapped in the illusion created by the inner demon, which turned out to be the scene where Li Zhirui belittled her. However, compared with the past, Li Zhirui in the illusion said even more nasty things, belittling Li Zhirui to nothing, and even Li Zhirui, who was supposed to comfort and enlighten her, said all kinds of nasty words. Li Zhirui was hit hard, and her state of mind was broken bit by bit, and the inner demon also took advantage of the opportunity to enter, making the illusion more real. No. You are not Brother 9, Aunt Ting. They won't do this to me. Just as Li Zhirui was about to drown, several images suddenly flashed in her mind, and she shouted and struggled wildly. The inner demon that was about to infect Li Zhirui's soul did not expect the other party to suddenly wake up and roared unwillingly. However, as inner demons, they have no other means except the illusions that bewitch people's hearts. Once they are discovered, the illusion will no longer work in a short time. So no matter how the inner demon struggles, it is finally wiped out by Li Zhirui. The calamity clouds above the sky outside also began to transform into rich spiritual energy, turning into a beam of light that sank into Li Zhirui's body, allowing her to forge a real golden elixir. Li Zhirui, who was worried about Li Zhirui's awakening, breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this scene. Finally it succeeded, but through this incident, he also knew that Li Zhirui's character was not that good, and he had to find a way to polish it. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.